Chapter 300. The Zhang family's ancestor's birthday. It was a big event for the entire Inhai city. After all, a peak vision divine stage cultivator, even if he was nearing the end of his life, was still a powerhouse that couldn't be ignored. A cultivator of this level, even if his blood and chi were to decline due to old age, his strength wouldn't decrease at all. After all, his cultivation had reached the spirit martial realm. What was important was divine sense. Although blood and chi could nurture divine sense, the decline of blood and chi wouldn't affect divine sense. So, once one's cultivation reached the spirit martial realm, the longer the powerhouse lived, the more terrifying they were. However, the Zhang family, which was supposed to be celebrating, was now in an earth-shattering uproar. A terrifying array directly covered half of the Zhang family's mansion, and a terrifying fluctuation spread out. Inside the array, it was a group of panicked Zhang family members, including the Zhang family's ancestor and the Inhai city's city lord. However, now the two of them looked weak, as if they had suffered some injuries. Song Qing stood outside the array and shouted at Wang Jiao and the other two. Wang Jiao, this time I offered the Four Directions Ghost Deity incense. The contribution points must be divided equally. Got it. Wang Jiao replied impatiently, and then crushed another jade talisman, and another array covered the mansion. Under the superposition of the two arrays, in an instant, it turned into a terrifying killing array. My Zhang family didn't offend you. Why are you attacking my Zhang family? The Zhang family's ancestor looked at Wang Jiao and the others with an ugly expression. Beside him was Zhang Wanshi, who was already dead. This birthday celebration was supposed to be a good thing. Zhang Wanshi took out something and said it was ambergris, which could prolong one's life, and then lit it in front of everyone as proof. In the end, it was the so-called ambergris. It wasn't something that could prolong one's life at all, but a kind of poisonous incense. When the Zhang family's ancestor reacted, Wang Jiao and the others directly threw out a large array, covering half of the Zhang family's mansion. In the face of such a powerful formation, if the Zhang family's ancestor was at his peak, he might have a way to try to break the array by force. But now, the poisonous smoke seemed to be able to corrode a spirit god, making him unable to use 50% of his strength, and there was no possibility of breaking the array. Or it wasn't just him. In the entire banquet hall, as long as a cultivator had given birth to a spiritual deity, it would be difficult for them to escape this calamity. Wang Ju sneered. You can only blame yourselves for being too close to Marquis Qianshan. Finished speaking, the killing array exploded in an instant, and invisible waves spread out. Immediately, someone screamed and died. Go! When Wang Ju saw this, he immediately ran out of the Zhang clan. As for Su Kai, Song Qing, and the others, they did not hesitate to escape. At this moment, the people of the Zhang family, who had been attracted by the sudden change of events, finally surrounded them. However, 95% of the Zhang family's experts were in the banquet hall. The remaining people who were on guard duty were not true experts. Although Wang Jiao and the rest were not very strong, they were still peak inner aura cultivators. When he was determined to escape, the others simply could not stop him. True essence erupted. More than a dozen Zhang family members screamed and fell to the ground, unable to get up. Wang Jiao and the others took this opportunity to directly leave the Zhang family's sphere of influence. Meanwhile, the commotion in the Zhang mansion also attracted the attention of the city guards. Everyone knew that. The city lord of Inhai City was also in the Zhang mansion. He immediately dispatched troops and rushed in the direction of the Zhang family. In the city, suddenly, it was chaos. As for Wang Jiao and the others, they took this opportunity to slip out of the chaotic crowd. Wang Jiao, you're leaving just like that. You're not doing things properly. Song Qing suddenly blocked in front of Wang Jiao, forcing them to stop. Wang Jiao frowned. What's the hurry? You have to go back and submit the mission to get the contribution points. When the time comes, you will naturally get your share. I want 50%. Impossible. Wang Jiao immediately refused. This time, we spent 12,000 contribution points on the exchange of the array. If we directly give you 50%, what's the difference between us working for free this time? Hearing this, Song Qing said in a deep voice, Don't forget, if it wasn't for my Four Directions Ghost Deity incense, Your array could really kill a peak vision divine cultivator. What a joke. If it wasn't for my array, your four directions ghost deity incense would be useless. Tell me, how do you plan to split it? Hearing this, Wangju didn't immediately speak. Instead, he looked at his mission progress and then said, "This time, I killed a peak vision divine cultivator and 2 airborne realm targets. The contribution points I got are 30,000. I can give you 10,000 at most. The remaining 20,000 after deducting the cost is not much. 10,000 contribution points." Song Qing was silent for a moment. In the end, he shook his head and said, "I want 12,000 contribution points. Don't forget that you've gained a lot of experience points this time. The experience points needed to advance by 1 stage is more than 2,000 contribution points." Just now, he clearly noticed that Wangju had broken through to the 7th level of the true martial realm, the physical invulnerability stage. "Okay, deal. After returning to the Yuan sect, I'll come to you again. Let's go." Song Qing nodded, then looked at Yi Jing'an on the side and left. 12,000 contribution points. After deducting the cost of the 4 directions ghost deity incense, there were still thousands of contribution points. When the time came, the two of them would divide it, and each of them would get 3 or 4,000 contribution points. It had only been 8 days since they arrived at Inhai City. They got thousands of contribution points. This progress of getting contribution points was much faster than doing other missions in the past. While hurrying, Yi Jing'an shook his head with some regret. "It's a pity that I didn't get the power token from the Zhang family. Otherwise, I would have really made a lot of money this time." "You still want to get the power token? If we were a little slower, there would be no one left." Song Qing was speechless. He could foresee that Inhai City would be in chaos soon. Even if the city lord of Inhai City was respawned in a few days, it would be the same. Someone dared to kill the city lord in public. This was just a mutant. If it wasn't a mutant, wouldn't it be true that the city lord would be dead forever? Moreover, he would drop a level with each death. For a peak vision divine cultivator, dropping a level would take at least several years or even decades of hard work. But this was enough to make the other party suffer. As for the Zhang family's great ancestor, it could be said that he was dead. He didn't have much lifespan to begin with. Now that he dropped a level with each death, the upper limit of his lifespan would drop another level. That old ancestor would probably die the moment he respawned. Thinking about this, Song Qing sighed. Since the city lord of Inhai City died once, it should be easier to kill him after his strength dropped. But after this, Inhai City is completely under martial law. I'm afraid it's impossible for us to catch him and take his life. While the others haven't caused too much of a commotion, let's go to the next place. Otherwise, once Marquis Qianshan's people become alert, it won't be easy to complete the mission. Let's go. The two of them disappeared into the starry night. Bang! With a slap, the table on the side turned into dust. In the main hall, everyone kept quiet out of fear. Marquis Qianshan's eyes were cold as he said indifferently, "Explain to this Marquis how a group of true martial realm cultivators could cause such a huge commotion in my Thousand Mountains prefecture. Even a vision divine cultivator could be assassinated." Reporting to the Marquis, there are too many mutants in the territory. That group of mutants is mixed with other mutants, and they have all sorts of strange methods. Even a vision divine cultivator wouldn't be able to escape if he wasn't careful. Did you find out where these mutants came from? I heard that these mutants came from Yuan sect. Yuan sect. Marquis Qianshan's eyes were cold. He didn't think that these mutants would come from Yuan sect. In just half a month, no less than 1,000 people under his command were assassinated. It affected 80% of the territory under his control and involved nearly 100 cities. Although they died in the hands of the mutants, they wouldn't really die. However, with such a large range, the shock caused by the aftermath would be extremely strong. After all, if it wasn't the mutants who did it mean that the people who were assassinated were really dead? This way, people's hearts would inevitably fluctuate. Originally, Marquis Qianshan had already sensed the threat of Yuan sect. That was why he sent a god martial realm cultivator with a sky decree to assassinate Yuan sect. What he didn't expect was He used a sky decree in the life of a god martial realm cultivator, but failed to kill Qin Shujian. The first assassination failed. Thus, he temporarily stopped the next step of the assassination. After all, with the first time, the other party would definitely be more vigilant in a short period of time. Moreover, with 2 doctrine artifacts protecting him, even a sky strike would be difficult to break through. Just as Marquis Qianshan was about to stop the assassination of Yuan's sect, Yuan's sect sent someone to take revenge. It had to be said. This time, Yuan's sect's actions had caused a lot of turmoil. Marquis, in my opinion, the people who know mutants the best are also mutants. Why don't we issue a mission and let the mutants in Qianshan Prefecture deal with Yuan's sect's mutants? At this time, a general stood up and said with a fist salute, "If that's the case, we will be able to save the effort of searching for other players. We will also be able to put an end to the negative effects that Yuan Zhong's players will bring." Hearing this, Marquis Qianshan nodded slightly. This was the only way to deal with the mutants now. After all, although the mutants weren't generally strong, they were too difficult to deal with. There were many mutants in almost every place. There were traces of mutants in every force, and even in every sect in the cultivation world. The infiltration of this race was too strong. However, it was impossible to uproot it completely. Just the fact that they were immortal was enough to eliminate the possibility of uprooting them. After that, another person spoke up. "Marquis, recently there was a mysterious swordsman who specifically chose real martial realm cultivators to kill, which also caused a lot of trouble. I wonder if we should take any action?" Chapter 301. Mysterious Swordsman? Marquis Qianshan's expression did not change as he said indifferently, "Is he a mutant or someone else?" "He's not a mutant. This person specifically targets cultivators in the cultivation world. I'm afraid no less than 1,000 true martial realm cultivators have died in his hands during this period. He's extremely strong and his whereabouts are mysterious. He's already caused quite a commotion. Check it out. If we can't use him, we'll get rid of him." Marquis Qianshan directly gave the order. Qianshan Prefecture could not fall into chaos now. At least, the place under his rule could not fall into chaos. Any unstable factors must be eliminated. When Marquis Qianshan's order was passed down, inside a mountain gate, the thick smell of blood and the sound of fighting could be heard constantly. A large number of corpses lay on the ground. Blood even stained the ground. Even if a batch of corpses disappeared after a period of time, it was far from erasing this bloody scene. Boom, boom. 3 terrifying figures were fighting quickly. Suddenly, a fierce gust of wind surged from the flat ground and then turned into a sky full of blades that shot out. Immediately, a shrill scream sounded. One of the figures was torn into pieces by the terrifying blades. As for the other person, he also screamed and frantically retreated. However, just as he retreated, tens of thousands of chaotic blades gathered and transformed into a rainbow-like blade that slashed downwards. Whoosh! The physical aura shield was destroyed as soon as it rose. When the blade slashed down, the person was split in half and fell to the ground. At this point, there was not a single person left alive in this sect. Peng Qing stood on the ground covered in blood. His expression was indifferent. The long blade in his hand was as red as blood at this moment. A terrifying power emanated from it. Then, he glanced at his mission and muttered to himself, 5,781. It won't be long before this mission is completed. Then, he glanced at the many corpses on the ground and simply collected the most valuable ones. Then, he turned and left. The Battle of the Immortal Plains. Peng Qing originally wanted to find an opportunity to snatch this head. In the end, Qin Shujian exposed his identity as a formation grandmaster. It directly scared him. It also scared Dao Nu in the ring and urged him to leave quickly. Because of this, Peng Qing finally understood what it meant by "there was always someone better than you." After leaving the Immortal Plains, Dao Nu even felt that it was not a good idea. So he directly asked him to leave the Baiyun Prefecture and enter other prefectures to kill true martial realm cultivators to complete the legacy mission. More and more cultivators were killed. Peng Qing's strength was also getting stronger. Until now, He had already firmly stepped into the second level of the spirit martial realm and was around the middle stage of the spirit god realm. He was only a step away from the peak stage of the spirit god realm, and then he would reach the threshold of the airborne realm. Peng Qing was basically certain. His realm was already one of the best among the players. As his strength increased, hunting cultivators had become much easier. Until now, he wasn't just simply hunting true martial realm cultivators, and some weaker domain enlightened spirit god realm cultivators had become his targets as well. A domain enlightened spirit god. It was equivalent to 10 true martial realm cultivators. Moreover, the amount of EXP it gave was quite a lot. Peng Qing was even more willing to hunt down such an existence if the conditions permitted. In the ring, Dao Nu's voice sounded. The blood-weeping blade is already a half-step Dao artifact. As long as you kill a few more domain-enlightened spirit god realm cultivators, you can restore it to the rank of Dao artifact. At that time, with the power of the Dao artifact combined with your current strength, as long as you don't have a Dao artifact in hand, domain-enlightened spirit god realm cultivators are still no match for you. Is a Dao artifact really that powerful? Of course. A Dao artifact is a divine weapon that touches the power of heaven and earth. Its power is unfathomable. Even if you reach the god martial realm, you might not be able to compete with a Dao artifact. Hearing that, Peng Qing looked at the blood-weeping blade in his hand, and his eyes flickered. On the blade, half a blood-colored Dao seal had been condensed. On the Dao seal, it also emitted an aura that made his heart palpitate. As for Dao Nu's words, Peng Qing basically had no doubts. From the moment he obtained the ring until now, the other party had shown his profound knowledge. We've killed many people here during this period of time, and the sects of the cultivation world here are probably unable to tolerate it. I suggest we go somewhere else. What do you think? Dao Nu said, it's good to go somewhere else. You've killed so many cultivators, so even if the cultivation world here doesn't join forces to deal with you, they'll definitely be extremely vigilant. If we want to make a move against you in the future, then we'll probably have to face domain-enlightened spirit god realm cultivators. He obtained agreement. Peng Qing didn't speak any further and immediately rushed out of this area, right after he left. After that, some cultivators caught up to him. The smell he left behind is still here. He's absolutely not far away. Let's continue pursuing him. This bastard can't be allowed to live. Not for anything else, but merely because he slaughtered the entire hidden desolate sect for no reason. We absolutely can't tolerate such a demon. Pursue him. 3 cultivators soared over, and they stopped at the spot Peng Qing stood at just now for an instant. After that, they found a direction, and in the next moment, they soared through the sky and pursued Peng Qing. During this period of time, cultivators were killed successively, and there was no lack of domain-enlightened spirit god realm cultivators amongst them. Moreover, there were even sects that had been annihilated. As for the hidden desolate sect they spoke of, it was a sect that had just been annihilated. There were over 1,000 people in the sect. Not a single one was left alive. Such actions were already no different from those of the demonic path. This time, the various sects were determined to kill Peng Qing. The 3 airborne realm cultivators were only a small portion of the people searching for traces. Even more people spread out to search, and it was even to the extent that great cultivators at the prominent Saint realm were mobilized. In the wilderness, Peng Qing stopped in his tracks. It wasn't that he wanted to stop, but it was because there were people blocking his path ahead. Be careful, these 3 people are all at the airborne realm. If you're really no match for them, then use a secret technique to escape. With just the 3 of them, they'll definitely be able to catch up to you. Dao Nu's voice sounded in his mind. Hearing this, Peng Qing's expression was as indifferent as ever, and he was already clenching the blood-sobbing blade tightly in his hand. Airborne realm. They were cultivators at least at the 4th level of the spiritual martial realm. As for him, he was only at the 2nd level of the spiritual martial realm. Regardless of whether it was in terms of numbers or cultivation, Peng Qing didn't have the slightest advantage. However, there was no fear on his face. There were no words. In the next moment, Peng Qing had already made his move. When the blood-sobbing blade slashed out, a gust of wind directly rolled up along with the long blade's movement. A terrifying hurricane swept in all directions, and then it turned into a sky full of dancing blades. Frenzied blade slash. Boom! The expressions of the 3 airborne realm cultivators changed when they saw the attack. They immediately unleashed their vigor chi to block the wind blades. They then immediately blasted Peng Qing with their divine consciousness. The divine consciousness of an airborne realm cultivator was powerful, and it was already close to the prominent saint realm. When the 3 divine consciousnesses bombarded, a layer of blood-red shield rose from Peng Qing's body, and then the shield shattered, and the 3 divine consciousnesses were also successfully blocked. In the next moment, Peng Qing's figure flashed like a ghost, and the blood-red long blade cut through the air and slashed down. A terrifying murderous aura spread from the blade, like a supreme god of death, enough to make people shudder. What a ferocious nature! The airborne realm cultivator who faced this blade directly was shocked. Without thinking, his body flew into the air and directly dodged this blade. This was also an airborne realm cultivator. Compared to cultivators below the airborne realm, this was the biggest advantage. The airborne realm, it was to be in an invincible position. Seeing this, Peng Qing's expression was normal. His blood-sobbing blade swept back, and a powerful blade shot out, shattering the 2 spiritual ether attacks that bombarded him. Seeing this scene, the pupils of the other 2 airborne realm cultivators also shrank slightly. The strength that Peng Qing displayed before them was not the strength that a spiritual god should have at all. Apart from not being able to fly, he was not weaker than an airborne realm cultivator in all aspects. He was even stronger than an ordinary airborne realm cultivator. The 3 of them flew into the air, releasing their chi and divine consciousnesses to attack Peng Qing in an endless stream. On the other hand, Peng Qing, he stood on the ground and slashed out with the blood-sobbing blade. The blades directly flew through the air and enveloped the 3 airborne realm cultivators. Boom, boom. The 4 of them fought in the wilderness. Powerful fluctuations spread out, shaking the ground and causing many cracks to appear. This can't go on. If this drags on for too long, it will definitely attract other cultivators. Let's end this quickly. Dao Nu's voice sounded, full of warning. On the surface, Peng Qing suddenly put away his blade. His body was already like an arrow that had left the bow, rushing into the distance. Seeing this, the 3 airborne realm cultivators immediately shouted, "Don't even think about escaping." As soon as they finished speaking, the 3 of them had already chased after Peng Qing. However, they did not know what method the other party used. Clearly, he was only relying on his 2 legs, but his speed was not the slightest bit slower than a cultivator flying in the air. No matter how the 3 of them chased, it was difficult to close the distance. After that, the 3 cultivators looked at each other, but they lowered their flying altitude together. Suddenly, the speed of the 3 of them increased by a large margin again, and the distance between them and Peng Qing was instantly shortened. The higher an airborne realm cultivator flew, the more power of divine consciousnesses they would need to consume, and the corresponding flying speed would also be slower. However, if they lowered their altitude, they could reduce the consumption of divine consciousnesses and increase their speed at the same time. You can't escape. The eyes of the 3 were cold, looking at Peng Qing's back as if they were looking at a dead man. All of a sudden, Peng Qing, who was originally fleeing forward, suddenly closed in from the opposite direction. Soon after, he abruptly turned around and slashed down with the weeping blood blade. Such an unforeseen event shocked the 3 of them. In an instant, the blood chi blade aura exploded, and the soul-stirring slaughter made the 3 cultivators feel a chill all over their bodies. No one expected Peng Qing to dare to turn around. Caught off guard, his mind was eroded by the slaughter and fell into a momentary stagnation, but he quickly recovered. However, for powerful cultivators, even a momentary stagnation was enough to determine the outcome of a battle. Chapter 302. Over a dozen figures flew over from the sky. When they saw the traces of battle on the ground and the 3 corpses that hadn't been refreshed, everyone's expression turned gloomy. This demon's strength is definitely not as simple as the domain spirit god realm. He killed 3 airborne realm cultivators in less than 15 minutes. Even if his strength isn't at the domain spirit god realm, It's probably not far from it. Someone spoke with an icy cold tone. Many people had solemn expressions as they looked at the corpses on the ground, especially the fine red line at the throat. It was even more shocking. An extremely fast saber, a strength that was formidable to the point of shocking. For the sake of searching for Peng Qing's tracks, dozens of sects had dispatched experts this time, and then they split up into groups of 2 or 3. Based on the strength he displayed in the past, he was around the domain's spirit god realm, but now it seemed like his strength wasn't as simple as the domain's spirit god realm at all. While they were furious, many people revealed deep fear on their faces. Such strength, it meant that most of the people present weren't a match for him. In other words, if they encountered Peng Qing, then the outcome would be no different from these 3 airborne realm cultivators. Instantly, someone spoke out. This demon's strength is growing day by day. If this continues, then there's probably no one present who's a match for him. Then once the demon arrives, it'll be the time of the sect's destruction. Hearing this, many people's hearts sank again. That person's words weren't empty words. With Peng Qing's speed of improvement, it really wouldn't be long before no one could keep him in check. However, while they were shocked, strong doubts surged from the bottom of their hearts. A few days ago, I saw that the demon was only at the true martial realm, yet now he's able to kill airborne realm cultivators. Even if he's a genius, it's impossible for his strength to improve so quickly. This person is either the reincarnation of an almighty figure like that person from the spirit domain of Mount Liang, or he possesses a precious treasure. The reincarnation of an almighty figure possesses a precious treasure. When they heard this, some people's eyes flickered. Being able to improve his strength so quickly was absolutely not simple. As for whether he might be a mutant or not, no one had such a thought, because those who died at Peng Qing's hands had never been revived. If they died at the hands of a mutant, they could be revived. Just this point had eliminated the possibility of him being a mutant. Mount Liang's spirit region. Ever since Yuanzong had displayed his absolute strength, the spirit domain had become the only sect in the spirit domain. As for the other sects in the spirit domain, they all followed Yuanzong's lead. All the prophets, they all had to be given a share of the division Yuan sect. As for those sects that were unwilling to give up their profits, they had long lost their value. Inside a new spirit realm, the resources were rich and tempting. However, not a single faction dared to intervene. The bloody lesson of the 8 great sects had already established Yuanzong's unshakable position. All the forces were well aware of this. Although the origin sect only existed in the spirit domain, it was actually no different from the top sects in the large regions. Deducing the 28th stage of the origin returning ancestral canon has consumed 20 million life force sources. Upgrading the 28th stage of the Guiyuan ancestral canon consumed 20 million life force sources. It has been detected that your life force source is not sufficient for 2 advancements at the same time. Would you like to choose one of the advancements? The system notification rang out. With a thought from Qin Shujian, the 20 million life force source was cleared to 0. What replaced it was the 28th stage of the Guiyuan ancestral canon. The life force source that I painstakingly accumulated was used up just like that. It's really useless. Qin Shujian looked at the little life force source left and sighed inwardly. Then, he digested the memory of the 28th stage of the Guiyuan ancestral canon. Ever since the mission to kill the experts under Marquis Qianshan had been issued, during this period of time, his life force source had increased extremely rapidly, although he did not receive any system notification. However, just by guessing, he knew where the reason for the rapid increase in life force source came from. Subsequently, Qin Shujian placed his mind on the Guiyuan ancestral canon, the 28th stage of the Guiyuan ancestral canon. In terms of profoundness, it was much stronger than a divine-level cultivation technique. The level of a cultivation technique only represented the upper limit of one's cultivation. The higher the level, the higher the upper limit of one's cultivation. However, it did not mean that a higher-level cultivation technique would be stronger than a lower-level cultivation technique at the same level. Although the Guiyuan ancestral canon was only at the upper level of the spirit level. However, in terms of profoundness and the increase in strength, It was much stronger than the other 6 divine-level cultivation techniques that he cultivated. This was also the reason why Qin Shujian had been consuming a large amount of life force source to deduce the reason why this cultivation technique could be improved. Or else, the amount of life force source consumed was enough to raise the other divine-level cultivation techniques to a higher level than the current Guiyuan ancestral canon. After he finished deducing the Guiyuan ancestral canon, in the following period of time, Qin Shujian temporarily put aside the cultivation of other cultivation techniques and focused on the 8th stage of the Guiyuan ancestral canon. Although he was now at the Array Grandmaster realm, even if he cultivated the Guiyuan ancestral canon, as long as he did not reach the level of a heavenly being, it would be difficult for his strength to change too much. However, the Array Grandmaster realm was strong, but Qin Shujian could not guarantee that there would be room for improvement in the future. Moreover, whether it was the Array Dao or the Forging Dao, they were only supplementary. What was truly decisive? It was still the strength of one's own realm, not to mention anything else. Just the fact that one's realm was higher, and one could live longer was not something that others could compare to. As Qin Shujian entered seclusion, the matters of the Origin sect were proceeding in an orderly manner. After recruiting a large number of disciples and distributing them, the other 5 branches besides the demon vein were also filled to the brim. The disciples had been recruited. The remaining time was the problem of nurturing them. With the Cold Mountain City as the source of income for the Origin sect, as well as the yearly tribute from the various sects, large amounts of silver flowed into the sect. Nurturing the current disciples was not a big problem at all. In a courtyard, a person wearing a long black robe was dancing with a sword. There was no sword chi, nor was there an explosion of gang chi. Even the dancing speed of the long sword was not much different from that of an ordinary person. But following the trajectory of his sword, there seemed to be an indescribable feeling. Gradually, a gentle breeze arose around him. As the long sword slashed down, there were faint marks on the tip of the sword, as if the sword body was already dancing with the power of the wind. Sword manipulation. It was also wind manipulation. It was unknown when it started. The gentle breeze had already turned into a gale, and there seemed to be clouds lingering on the sword body. The original speed of the sword dance had become as slow as a turtle, as if the sword body was frozen in mid-air. But very quickly, the sword body in mid-air dissipated, and it was actually an afterimage. The sword itself was so fast that it was difficult for the naked eye to catch it. A shocking sword will erupted. It stirred up the wind and clouds. The last long howl was accompanied by a man and a sword in the air, which directly attracted the attention of many. Is this Eldershire? Sword manipulation. Could it be that Eldershire has broken through to the airborne realm? Looking at Eldershire, who was riding the wind and holding a sword in one hand like an immortal, many disciples of the Origin sect recognized him, and a surprised expression appeared on their faces. As for Eldershire, perhaps the newcomers did not know much about him. But for the players who had joined the Origin sect long ago, this name was deeply engraved in their minds. He was only a guest elder in the past. But after the Origin sect was promoted to a 5th grade force, he killed more than a dozen spiritual god realm cultivators by himself with a sword, and among them, he even killed 2 airborne realm powerhouses. He instantly became famous, challenging someone of a higher level. This was worthy of admiration no matter where it was. Especially the difference between the spiritual god realm and the airborne realm, it made people understand how powerful Eldershire was. Because of this, Qin Shujian made an exception and promoted him to an outer sect elder, completely breaking away from his original status as a guest elder. Airborne realm? Outside the martial arts hall, Zheng Feng looked at the figure falling from the sky, and a bright light burst out from his old eyes. His hand that was stroking his beard also paused for a moment. He was also in the airborne realm, but his strength was forcibly increased with the advancement of the Origin sect, and it was not the result of his own cultivation. When it came to cultivation talent, Zheng Feng also knew that his talent could only be said to be average. Fortunately, after the realm was promoted to the spiritual martial realm, the requirements for one's foundation and aptitude were no longer high. Instead, there were greater requirements for comprehension and even temperament. On the contrary, His comprehension and temperament were not bad, so his progress in the spiritual martial realm was much faster than when he was in the basic realm. But no matter how fast it was, every step after the spiritual martial realm required a long time to polish before one could cross the threshold of the next level. So until now, Zheng Fang was still at the 4th level of the spiritual martial realm and had not broken through to the 5th level of the spiritual martial realm. In the entire Origin sect, not counting the guest elders who came in later, there were only 2 cultivators at the 4th level of the spiritual martial realm who stepped into the airborne realm. But now, there was one more Test Jianfeng. In the courtyard, Test Jianfeng had already fallen from the sky, and the long sword in his hand had been sheathed again. In his calm expression, there was also some uncontrollable joy. 4th level of the spiritual martial realm, airborne realm. He never thought that he would be able to step into the airborne realm in his lifetime. And with such a fast speed, he directly broke through the threshold of this level. At the same time, when his cultivation broke through, the martial arts that he cultivated had finally broken through the original threshold and reached a whole new level. After a short moment of joy, Test Jianfeng's mind calmed down, and in the depths of his calm eyes, there was a hint of hidden cold light that appeared for a long time. But soon, the cold glint in his eyes disappeared as he looked outside the courtyard. With a wave of his hand, an invisible wind flew out. The door of the courtyard was directly opened. "Greetings, Great Elder." Elder Test broke through to the airborne realm today. This old man is here to congratulate you. Seeing the open courtyard door, Zheng Fang went straight in. Chapter 303. In the courtyard, beside the stone table under the shade of the tree, 2 people sat on the left and right. Today, Elder Shi has broken through to the airborne realm. Our sect has another airborne realm expert. It's really worth celebrating. If it weren't for the secluded cultivation, I'm afraid he would have come to congratulate you in person. You flatter me, Great Elder. Shi Jianfeng smiled faintly. He didn't feel too emotional because of the other party's words. This seemingly old man in front of him. He also had great importance in his heart. First, it was because of his identity as the Great Elder of Skills Imparting. Other than the sect leader, the other party had the highest status. Second, it was because he had always felt an invisible pressure from Zheng Fang's body. The old man in front of him seemed to be kind, but Shi Jianfeng was sure that the other party was definitely a hidden expert. Moreover, it was not something an ordinary airborne realm expert could compare with. Even though he had never exchanged blows with Zheng Fang, he believed in his own perception. There was no way he would make a mistake, especially now that he had broken through to the airborne realm. This feeling in Shi Jianfeng's heart became even clearer. If it was possible, he really wanted to compete with Zheng Fang. However, these thoughts only appeared in the bottom of his heart, but he didn't really express them. Looking at Zheng Fang's expression, Shi Jianfeng suddenly changed the topic and said, "Great Elder came at the right time this time. I have some things to deal with recently and will need to leave the sect for a while. If anything happens to the disciples of the sect during this period, I hope Great Elder can take care of them." Now there were many disciples in the Sky Origin sect. Basically, everyone would take in a few people they liked as their disciples. Even if Shi Jianfeng didn't like this kind of thing, but for the sake of the sect's face, he still took in 4 disciples appropriately. It could be considered as his legacy. Zheng Fang said, "You and I are from the same sect. It's normal to take care of each other. But this old man is a little curious. Where is Great Elder Shi going?" Beichuan Grand Region, Longtai Spirit Region. Longtai Spirit Region? Zheng Fang looked a little confused. Now that the entire Baiyun Mansion was involved with the forces of the Sky Origin sect, he had heard of Longtai Spirit Region. But what he was curious about was, what did Longtai Spirit Region have to do with Shi Jianfeng? Shi Jianfeng didn't answer. Seeing this, Zheng Fang did not pursue the matter any further. After giving some simple instructions, Test Jianfeng didn't bring anything with him. He carried his long sword on his back and left Mount Liang. He made a breakthrough into the airborne realm. He immediately urged his divine will to travel. In less than half a day, they arrived at the ancient city. After Luo Yunyang displayed his identity token, The general guarding the teleportation gate said politely, "So it's an elder from the Yuan sect. May I know where you intend to head to?" "If you want to go to the Beichuan Great Region and the Longtai Spirit Region, which is the closest place." "Dragon Terra Spirit Region?" The general thought for a moment and then said, "If you are going to the Longtai Spirit Region, you should go to the Yangchuan Spirit Region first." "I'll have to trouble you then." "Elder Sure, you're too polite." After paying a certain fee, Tess Jianfeng disappeared into the teleportation gate. As for the general, his expression changed slightly before he sent a message back. Right now, Yuan sect was an overlord-level sect. However, it had always been in the Mount Liang Spirit Region. Very few elders would go to other spirit regions, let alone to other great regions. The scene changed. When Shi Jianfeng came back to his senses, he had already appeared in another city. Even with the protection of his divine will, his physical body was still shaken when he was passing through the teleportation gate. However, Shi Jianfeng had no intention of stopping. He directly teleported again and officially headed to the Longtai Spirit Region. 3 days later, Shi Jianfeng looked at the abandoned house in front of him. The plaque at the door was gone, the broken door was ajar, and the surrounding courtyard walls were also in ruins. Weeds and moss grew on them. He gently pushed open the courtyard door. A large amount of dust fell from the broken door. However, before the dust touched him, it seemed to have encountered an invisible shield and scattered in all directions. He stepped into the courtyard door. Looking at the familiar scene in front of him, Shi Jianfeng's eyes seemed to have fallen into some memories. He stood there in a daze. It was not until a long time later that he woke up from his memories. 10 years. A faint sigh came out of his mouth. Shi Jianfeng followed the memories of the past and walked into a broken hall. There were broken tables and chairs scattered around, as well as some indelible traces. Looking at the scattered memorial tablets in front of him, only a few were still standing, but they were already covered with cobwebs. Suddenly, Shi Jianfeng bent down and picked up a wooden tablet covered in dust. He then wiped away the dust on it, revealing the words on it. "Memorial tablet of my late father, Ji Jianxing." After seeing this handwriting, Shi Jianfeng was stunned for a few seconds. His fingers gently stroked the tablet, and his eyes were filled with nostalgia. After a long time, the morning hall in front of him had been cleaned up. As for the memorial tablets in front of him, there was not a single speck of dust. There were many memorial tablets placed on top of it. One of them was engraved with Ji Jianxing's name. Shi Jianfeng took out an incense burner from somewhere and lit the incense. He immediately knelt down and kowtowed to the memorial tablet in front of him 3 times. Suddenly, there seemed to be a gust of wind around him. The gust of wind came quickly. It also went quickly. But at this moment, the incense and candles went out directly. Even a few memorial tablets fell down. Seeing this, Shi Jianfeng looked calm and said in a deep voice, "Father, you can rest assured. Some things should be understood after 10 years. After that, he kowtowed again, then stood up from the ground. He took out a long black cloth and put all the memorial tablets on it. Then, he carried it on his back and turned to leave without any reluctance. Just as Shi Jianfeng left, there was a violent noise behind him. He saw that the morning hall seemed to have been in disrepair for a long time and collapsed with a loud bang. After leaving the house, Shi Jianfeng stepped into the air and directly left the place, flying quickly in one direction. In less than 2 hours, he had already stopped. In front of him, there was a stone tablet as tall as 2 people, with 3 big words engraved on it. Void-fixing sword sect. He struck out a palm, and a terrifying true essence bombarded the stone tablet. The stone tablet flashed with a strong light, and a layer of condensed shield emerged from it. But this shield could not withstand Shi Jianfeng's attack for more than 2 seconds before it shattered into light spots. The remaining force of the attack landed on the stone tablet, and the entire stone tablet was smashed into pieces. The loud noise immediately attracted the attention of others. "Who dares to cause trouble in my void-fixing sword sect?" 5 people who were waiting near the mountain gate immediately appeared in front of Shi Jianfeng after hearing the noise. When they saw the broken mountain stone, the 5 people's expressions changed drastically, and then they looked at Shi Jianfeng with eyes full of killing intent. They did not say much. The 5 people looked at each other, then directly pulled out the long swords on their backs and charged toward Shi Jianfeng. They did not know who Shi Jianfeng was, but the other party had directly smashed the stone tablet of the mountain gate. The provocation was obvious. Destroying the mountain gate, not to suppress the hatred of killing one's father. The moment the 5 people attacked, Shi Jianfeng's expression was indifferent. He ignored the 5 long swords piercing toward him. When he stepped forward, a layer of protective energy rose from his body. Bang! The long swords pierced the protective energy, and the powerful force broke it. Before the 5 people could be shocked, a terrifying sword intent and divine thought burst out from Shi Jianfeng's eyes. In an instant, the 5 people's minds were shattered. Their heads seemed to have suffered a terrible attack, and they directly exploded. At this moment, the commotion from the mountain gate finally attracted the attention of the other people in the void-fixing sword sect. Boom! A powerful aura erupted from the distance. Immediately, a middle-aged man rushed over. The moment he saw the shattered stone tablet and the corpses of the 5 disciples whose heads had exploded, an intense killing intent erupted from his eyes. But when he saw Shi Jianfeng, his anger was mixed with a hint of surprise. "You're from the Ji family? You're Kuang Ning." Shi Jianfeng also looked at him. His expression was as indifferent as usual, but there was a cold light in his eyes. "It's you. No wonder you dare to act so presumptuously in my void-fixing sword sect." After receiving confirmation, Kuang Ning sneered and looked at Shi Jianfeng mockingly. "But I'm curious. What gives you the confidence to come here?" Before he finished speaking, he attacked directly. When he pointed his finger, his true essence surged and turned into a powerful sword intent. He wanted to kill Shi Jianfeng in one fell swoop. Kuang Ning didn't know why Shi Jianfeng dared to come here, but since the remnants of the Ji family appeared before him, it was impossible for him to hold back. When the sword intent slashed down, Shi Jianfeng also raised his hand and a black sword intent slashed out. When the two collided, Kuang Ning's sword intent was instantly shattered, and the black sword intent continued to attack him. "What?" The sudden change made Kuang Ning's expression change slightly. Without thinking, he propped up his protective aura chi and blocked the sword aura. At the same time, a powerful divine thought rose from his body and turned into an invisible attack that blasted out. A spiritual martial realm cultivator. His most powerful technique was divine thought. Although he didn't know how Shi Jianfeng had become so powerful, Shi Jianfeng had only just entered the true martial realm. Now that 10 years had passed, it was already very powerful for him to be able to step into the physical invulnerability realm. But judging from the collision just now, Shi Jianfeng should have stepped into the spiritual god realm. In this regard, Kuang Ning wasn't worried at all. In his opinion, Shi Jianfeng had just stepped into the spiritual god realm at the most, and there was still a huge gap between him and Shi Jianfeng, who was at the 3rd level of the spiritual god realm. Under the attack of divine thought, Shi Jianfeng would definitely lose. But when his divine thought blasted out, a powerful divine thought rose up from Shi Jianfeng. Kuang Ning's expression finally changed drastically when the divine thought that was as sharp as a divine sword appeared. Chapter 304. It was just a single blow. Kuang Ning's divine will was torn apart. The divine will sword intent continued to slash at Kuang Ning. Shortly after, a spirit artifact sword appeared and slashed at the divine will sword intent. A cold glint flashed in Test Jianfeng's eyes. He unsheathed the sword on his back. A black energy sword shot out and devoured the spirit artifact sword in Kuang Ning. Boom! The black energy sword tore through the air and left a deep trench in the ground. A long sword with a restrained spirituality flew out and landed on the ground not far away. As for Kuang Ning, his entire body was split into 2 halves. The fight had only lasted for 1 or 2 seconds, but a peak spiritual god cultivator had died under Test Jianfeng's sword. Some of the Dingshu sword sect's elites who had rushed over after hearing the news were shocked when they saw this. Elder Kuang. Who is he? How can he be so strong? Not everyone recognized Test Jianfeng. Apart from Kuang Ning and a small number of people, the rest of them were shocked and confused when they saw Test Jianfeng's appearance. Who was he? How could he kill Kuang Ning with a single strike? With such strength, he was at least a Zephyr powerhouse. Moreover, when did the Dingshu sword sect provoke such an enemy? Test Jianfeng held his sword in one hand and carried a black bag on his back. He looked at the shocked Dingshu sword sect members and suddenly laughed out loud. Dingshu sword sect, the Ji clan is here to collect their debt today. As soon as he finished speaking, he unsheathed his sword. The sky was filled with sword shadows in an instant, and the terrifying Gang Chi had already enveloped everyone. The Ji clan? What Ji clan? Hearing this, some people revealed doubtful expressions, while others revealed serious expressions. But no matter what, now that the attack had arrived, they did not have time to think. Kill. I don't care if he's from the Ji clan. Since he dares to come to the Dingshu sword sect alone to kill someone, he should be prepared to die. A powerful aura erupted. His energy collided with the sword shadows in the sky like a flood. It only lasted for an instant. It was a power that could shatter the heavens and rend the earth. When Test Jianfeng held the long sword, his eyes had already become indifferent. His feet moved as if he was taking a leisurely stroll, but he was able to pass through the tiny gaps between Zhenyuan and Zhenyuan. No matter how fierce their attacks were, they could not harm him in the slightest. Meanwhile, the long sword in his hand stabbed out like a ghost, each sword strike precisely hitting a weak point. When the true essence dissipated, the tip of the sword had already pierced through the throat of a person. A long black robe, a long sword covered in black true essence. The only difference was it was probably the tip of the sword that had pierced through his throat, bringing about a little bit of blood. In less than a quarter of an hour, the people in front of the mountain gate had already been slaughtered by Test's sword peak. Everyone's fatal wound was the same. Their throats had been pierced through by a sword. The terrifying sword chi was still lingering on the wound, allowing blood to gush out. Among the many corpses, Test Jinfeng was still standing with his sword in hand. Even though he had killed many people, there was not a single trace of blood on his body. Only the tip of his sword had a trace of dark red. Boom! A shocking sword will erupted from his body. The terrifying sharpness instantly covered the entire Dingshu sword sect. The sword will that soared into the sky seemed to shake the clouds and dissipate them. Such an unforeseen event. It immediately attracted the attention of some of the Void Sword sect's experts who were cultivating in seclusion. Hiss, what a powerful sword intent. Oh no, an expert has invaded. After a brief moment of shock, the experts seemed to have understood something. Their expressions changed again. They immediately emerged from their seclusion and rushed toward the source of the sword intent. By the time they were halfway there, they saw many corpses lying on the ground. Every time the black energy sword and the extremely fast tip of the sword swept past, at least one person would fall. In just a few seconds, nearly 10 people had died. Impudent. Yin Guan was furious. His true essence condensed into a purple long sword in his hand. In the blink of an eye, he attacked Test Jinfeng, who was slaughtering the crowd. When the long sword slashed out, it was as if purple chi had come from the east. An overwhelming aura of righteousness spread out along with the sword, calming the hearts of the void-fixing sword sect disciples who were panicking. They looked at the oncoming purple chi. Test Jinfeng's expression remained unchanged. He slashed out with his long sword, and a black energy sword erupted like a soul-devouring demon. One purple and one black. One righteous and one demonic. When the two collided, a terrifying gust of wind was instantly stirred up. Yin Guan took a step back. The purple long sword in his hand had already dissipated. As for the black energy sword, it had been blocked. At this point, everyone was reassured. Everyone calmed down and looked at Yin Guan. Their eyes were filled with surprise. It's the Grand Elder. The Grand Elder has come out of seclusion. With the Grand Elder's help, this person will surely be killed. Grand Elder, please kill this demon. For a moment, the scene was chaotic. However, this also showed how important this person was to them. His attack did not succeed. Yin Guan also sensed Test Jinfeng's strength. His righteous face turned solemn. He said in a loud voice, "Who are you, sir? Why have you come to the Void Sword sect and started a massacre?" I'm a debt collector. The Void Sword sect has always done things with a clear conscience. When did we owe you a debt? Why would you commit such a heinous crime? 10 years ago, the Void Sword sect stole a fragment of my G family's Dao artifact and killed 173 of my family members. Today, I'm here to collect my debt. The G family? Yin Guan was taken aback. He had clearly heard of it. He had not thought about it. The G family had been destroyed. Moreover, the G family members had come to the Void Sword sect. Thoughts surged in Yin Guan's mind, but his expression remained the same. He said in a low voice, "Whether the Ji family's destruction was done by the Dingshu sword sect is still up for debate. However, it's a fact that you've killed my sect's disciples. If I don't take you down today, how am I supposed to answer to my dead disciples? I'll kill you first, then I'll kill Hong Wenshan." Test Jianfeng did not waste any more words with the other party. He took a step forward, and it was as if the stars had moved. Thousands of sword chi burst forth from his feet, attacking the surrounding people like a flurry of arrows, while he himself had already closed in on Yin Guan. As the disciples screamed, the long sword covered in black true essence occupied Yin Guan's vision. Boom! Purple true essence erupted, and the righteous energy of heaven and earth pressed down on the void. Yin Guan's tiger-like eyes were filled with coldness. The storage ring in his hand flashed and a frosty long sword appeared in his hand. In the next instant, it pierced out with a frightening aura. The tips of the two swords faced each other. Test Jianfeng took a step forward and leaped into the air. His body left 5 afterimages in the air, and 5 black long swords attacked from all directions. Vast purple chi, everlasting heaven and earth. Yin Guan shouted angrily. His long sword glowed purple, and a terrifying sword energy slashed out. At the same time, a purple shield rose around him, turning into an impenetrable barrier. The purple sword energy slashed out. One of the afterimages shattered and dissipated. It's fake? Yin Guan was slightly taken aback. The other 4 afterimages merged into one, and the sword that seemed capable of slicing through the void accurately struck the purple shield. Crack! The shield shattered. Yin Guan didn't even need to turn around to look. He took a step to the right, and at the same time, he stabbed out with his sword. At the same time, he took a step forward, and powerful true essence condensed in his other hand. He suddenly turned around and unleashed a powerful attack. Test Jianfeng took a step forward, and an invisible sword lotus bloomed. His body flashed like a ghost. The long sword in his hand had already torn apart Yin Guan's attack, and he continued to attack. Boom, boom. In the void, only 2 afterimages could be seen, and they kept exchanging blows. A terrifying gust of wind spread out with every collision, causing people to feel apprehensive. Who is this person? How can he fight the Great Elder to such an extent? Based on what he said, could he be someone from the Ji family of Anlin? One of them said in bewilderment. As soon as he finished speaking, suddenly, someone looked at him and asked, "Do you know who the Ji family is?" The Ji clan of Anlin is a powerful clan. While they are not as powerful as us of the Dingshu sword clan, they are still a clan with cultivators at the airborne realm. However, a great war broke out in the Ji clan 10 years ago. After one night, the entire Ji family was wiped out, and they disappeared from the world of cultivators since then. No one knows who attacked the Ji family, and no one even knows who did it. That person said slowly, and then said in surprise, "But now, it seems that the Dingshu sword clan was the one who wiped out the Ji family." Hiss. Hearing that, the others looked at each other, not knowing what to say for a while. If it was really the Dingshu sword clan that wiped out the Ji family, it was understandable that they came to seek revenge. However, someone else sneered and said, "So what if it was really our clan that wiped out the Ji family? Does it mean that those who died at his hands had participated in the battle that wiped out the Ji family?" Junior brother Li only joined the Dingshu sword clan 5 years ago by chance, but now, he still died at the hands of this devil. It doesn't matter if he is a member of the Ji family or not, or if the Ji family was wiped out by our clan. He is going to die today. That's right. He killed so many of our people, and he can't leave here alive. For a moment, The disciples who were originally immersed in the feud between the Ji family and the Dingshu sword clan also came to their senses. That was right. To them, it no longer mattered who was right and who was wrong. What mattered was, now that Test Swordfeng had killed his way to the Dingshu sword clan and killed their fellow disciples, it was a feud that would not end until one of them was dead. From the very beginning, there was no way for both sides to ease the tension. At that moment, the battle between Yin Guan and Test Swordfeng had attracted the attention of other powerful cultivators from the Dingshu sword clan. When they saw Test Swordfeng's unfathomable sword, they all looked serious. As for the sect master Hong Wanshan, he saw everything at that moment. This bastard is cruel, and his crime of killing our disciples is unforgivable. There is no need to talk about morality with him. Elders, work together with the first elder and kill him here. We will obey. Chapter 305. In the air. Black and purple energies each occupied half of the space. Towards the end of the battle, Yin Guan was even more shocked. He realized that he couldn't do anything to his opponent. One had to know. After being in seclusion for so many years, his strength had reached the peak of the Zephyr realm. He was only one step away from the spiritual god manifestation. If he hadn't sensed Test Sword's soaring sword intent, Yin Guan wouldn't have been forced out. However, even if he couldn't break through to the spiritual god manifestation, he could be considered one of the strongest in the Dingshu sword sect with his strength at the peak of the Zephyr realm. However, even so, he still couldn't take down Test Sword. Or rather, Yin Guan hadn't gained any advantage in the battle. Instead, he seemed to be at a disadvantage. This made him even more shocked. The Ji family. When did such a strong person appear? Even the Ji family's patriarch had just reached the early stage of the Zephyr realm. Compared to the person in front of him, the difference was like heaven and earth. The Dingshu sword sect had offended such a strong person. If they didn't take care of it, the Dingshu sword sect would be in trouble. Until now, Yin Guan couldn't care less about the whole story. Since the other party had attacked the Dingshu sword sect, it meant that they had an endless hatred. So, after noticing it, he didn't stop the other elders of the Dingshu sword sect from attacking. He also didn't have the thought of ganging up on them. Facing such a strong person, only by killing him with lightning speed could he truly eliminate all future troubles. On the other side, Test Sword looked at the three people below him. His eyes flashed fiercely. His sword, covered in true essence, shone brightly. When the shocking sword intent exploded, the void trembled. Then, he took a step forward, and his body turned into 36 afterimages. Black sword light instantly occupied everything in the void. This is the 7 killing gods and demons against the stars. Yin Guan's heart trembled. He looked at the 36 shadows and the black sword light that occupied his vision. He didn't know what to do. 7 killing gods and demons against the stars. It was the Ji family's secret technique. It was a divine-level martial art. A divine-level martial art was powerful. However, the Dingshu sword sect had such a martial art. But, looking at the terrifying might of the black sword light, it was exactly the same as the 7 killers of the gods and demons against the stars in his impression. However, the might of this move was many times more terrifying than the one he had seen before. Yin Guan was almost certain. This was definitely the 7 killers of gods and demons against the stars. However, the person in front of him had already practiced this move to an unfathomable level. He looked at the approaching sword light. Yin Guan had no time to think. According to the moves of the 7 killers of gods and demons, only one of them was real. However, compared to the limit of this martial art, which was 7 shadows, the 36 shadows in front of him were too many. Purple chi from the east. The purple chi on the sword shone brightly, and the purple light that filled the sky finally gathered into a beam, attacking the person he thought was most likely to be the real person. However, in order to prevent any accidents, Yin Guan also secretly reserved 20% of his strength to prevent himself from making a wrong judgment. At the same time, the other 3 elders at the airborne realm were also hit by the afterimages. However, what they did was the same as what Yin Guan did. When attacking one of the afterimages, they reserved some of their strength to prevent any mistakes. When the 2 attacks collided, Yin Guan felt a terrifying power. His heart was immediately filled with joy. Such a reaction would only appear if his prediction was correct. There was no hesitation. All the remaining strength burst out and bombarded Test Jianfeng, who was holding the sword in front of him. The other afterimages were still attacking. However, he turned a blind eye. However, PFFDD. The long sword pierced through his chest. The intense pain made Yin Guan involuntarily look down, just in time to see half of the tip of the sword piercing through his chest. The sword was stained with red blood. How? How? Yin Guan's eyes were full of shock and confusion. How could he be wrong? The attack just now was clearly predicted correctly. However, when Yin Guan looked at the other three, he found that the other three were like him, having their chests pierced through by the afterimages. He suddenly smiled bitterly. What kind of martial art is this? As soon as he finished speaking, he saw 36 afterimages turn into 36 beams of light, completely piercing through the four of them. Terrifying power burst from within their bodies in an instant, completely destroying their physical vitality. Even their divine minds were on the verge of being destroyed. However, the divine mind of someone at the peak of the airborne realm was too powerful. Even after suffering such an attack, they did not immediately die. At the moment when they fell, Yin Guan heard a cold voice in his ears, 7 kills of gods and demons against the stars. When he heard this sentence, a look of relief seemed to have appeared on his face. It really was the 7 kills of gods and demons against the stars. However, this was very different from the 7 kills of gods and demons against the stars in his impression. Everything happened too quickly. In the eyes of everyone from the Dingshu sword clan, all they saw was a black flash of the sword. In an instant, 4 elders at the airborne realm, including Yin Guan, were hit by a fatal attack and fell from the sky. Hong Wenshan, the sect master of the Dingshu sword clan, who had been confident of winning, looked shocked at the moment. Looking at Test Jianfeng, who fell from the void, the shock in his heart was more intense than anyone else's. Hong Wenshan, it's your turn this time. Looking at the face in front of him, which he had thought about day and night, Test Jianfeng found that there was not much anger in his heart, only cold murderous intent. You're Ji Jianxing's son? Hong Wenshan asked in surprise. 10 years had passed. Test Jianfeng's appearance was somewhat different from before, but there was no reason for him not to recognize the enemy standing in front of him. When you killed everyone in the Ji clan, did you ever think that today's situation would happen? Hearing this, Hong Wenshan's expression changed again. He did not know how the heir of the Ji clan, who had just entered the true martial realm, who had escaped back then, had become so powerful in just 10 years. In particular, the move that killed Yin Guan and the other 3 in an instant. It made him even more shocked. When it came to strength, Hong Wenshan did not dare to say that he was definitely a match for Yin Guan. The Dingshu sword clan was not those big sects of the realm of spirits. It was already the limit to have cultivators at the peak of the airborne realm. As for cultivators at the spirit god realm, they only had such cultivators at their peak. But now, there was not a single one. Secretly taking a deep breath, Hong Wenshan squeezed out an ugly smile and said, as the saying goes, revenge breeds revenge. When will there ever be an end to it? Besides, you've killed many people in the Dingshu sword clan. How about we just let this matter go? Since I'm here today, I won't rest until I'm dead. Unless your Dingshu sword clan is annihilated, there's no way for me to let this matter go. Hong Wenshan did not speak again. When he saw Test Jianfeng's indifferent expression, he knew that the other party was determined. In the next moment, without waiting for the other party to reply, he reached out and summoned a purple-blue longsword. Then, he swung out his sword energy. The powerful sword energy turned into purple-blue lightning and charged toward Test Jianfeng. When he made his move, Hong Wenshan immediately shouted, "Where are the disciples of the Dingshu sword clan? Use all your strength to kill this monster. Anyone who slays demons will be rewarded handsomely." After he finished speaking, a portion of the disciples who felt a sense of belonging to the Dingshu sword clan immediately attacked. And a portion of the people, they hesitated on the spot. While Hong Wenshan and the others were attacking, Test Jianfeng had already taken a step forward, using the 7 murders of gods and demons against the stars slash. The instant 36 afterimages appeared, a black sword light filled the surroundings. Boom! It was only a moment. The surroundings had already turned into an azure purgatory. Under the 7 killing gods and demons against the stars, the Dingshu Sword Clan disciples who were within range of the attack were all pierced and torn apart by the black sword light. In less than 2 or 3 breaths, hundreds of Dingshu Sword Clan disciples were killed. In the end, the 36 shadows turned into a shocking sword that seemed to cross the barrier of time and space and attacked Hong Wunshan directly. Buzz! Hong Wunshan's pale golden robe glowed and a layer of shield condensed in front of him. Bang! The sword, which was more powerful than the peak of the Zephyr realm, bombarded the shield. A terrifying gust of wind scattered, and the shield shook violently. The light suddenly shone brightly, but it did not completely shatter. On the other hand, when Test Jianfeng attacked, he seemed to have suffered a backlash, and his body took 2 steps back. Haha, this is my Dingshu Sword Clan's half-step Dao artifact, the Golden Silk 9 Clouds robe. Even a prominent divine cultivator would find it difficult to break through. Although you're strong, you're still a bit lacking if you want to break through the Golden Silk 9 Clouds robe. Hong Wunshan's heart calmed down. He admitted that Test Jianfeng was much stronger than him. However, with the Golden Silk 9 Clouds robe in hand, he was innately invincible. Even the extremely terrifying 7 slaughtering gods and demons against the stars would not be able to pose any threat to him. As long as he was unharmed, no matter how many Dingshu Sword Clan disciples died, his heart would not waver in the slightest. As long as he, Hong Wunshan, was in power, even if all the Dingshu Sword Clan disciples died, he would still be able to ensure that the clan's inheritance would not be destroyed. On the other side, Test Jianfeng's eyes were solemn when he failed to kill Hong Wunshan with 1 strike. With his current strength, every time he used the 7 killing gods and demons against the stars, it consumed a lot of energy. If it were in the past, even if he was in the airborne realm, he would be exhausted after using it 2 or 3 times. Fortunately, he had now broken through the original scope of this move and comprehended something on a higher level, allowing it to reach a level beyond the Dao. That was why the energy consumption of this move was reduced to a certain extent. However, no matter how much it was reduced, it would still consume a lot of energy. However, looking at the fearless Hong Wunshan in front of him, a cold smile appeared on Test Jianfeng's indifferent face. Today, I'll see if the Dingshu Sword Clan's Golden Silk 9 Clouds robe is really unbreakable. As soon as he finished speaking, 7 killing gods and demons against the stars, this terrifying killing move once again appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Chapter 306. Facing this attack again, Hong Wunshan still didn't have a chance to fight back. If the Ji family's 7 kills against the stars was inferior to the Dingshu Sword Sect's martial arts, then the current 7 kills against the stars, it had completely surpassed the category of divine-level martial arts. Unity of heaven and man, and it had already entered the path. Hong Wunshan didn't know how far his opponent had reached with this move, but with the Golden Silk 9 Clouds robe on him, he wasn't afraid of being killed. Boom! The shocking sword attacked again. The shield shook violently, but it still didn't show any signs of shattering. The attack didn't shatter. Test Jianfeng's figure didn't stop, and he used the 7 kills against the stars again. It was a powerful sword. The shaking shield shook violently, and cracks appeared in the eyes of the two. Seeing this, Hong Wunshan was shocked. The gold-threaded 9 Clouds raiment was ultimately not a true doctrine item, and the power displayed by the sword-testing edge was not something that common airborne realm beings would have been able to withstand. As such, that precious treasure of the Dingshu Sword Clan began to show signs of collapsing. Ignoring Hong Wunshan's shock, Test Jianfeng once again used the 7 slaughters of gods and demons against the stars, and this time, more cracks appeared on the barrier. Boom! Boom! When the 7 kills against the stars was used for the 5th time, the shield formed by the Golden Silk 9 Clouds robe finally shattered. Die! Test Jianfeng looked at the little vital essence left, and he took a step forward. When the 36 afterimages scattered, they turned into a shocking sword light that completely covered Hong Wunshan. It was also at this time A terrifying aura flew over from afar, and a 10 feet tall spirit god appeared in the void. His palm crossed an unknown distance and blocked the fatal sword attack. Boom! A strong wind spread, and Test Jianfeng only felt the divine sense in his mind tremble. The sword intent inside his mind shook violently, trying to offset this terrifying divine sense. Soon, the dust and smoke dissipated. Test Jianfeng took a few steps back, and there was a faint trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. The strength of his attack wasn't weaker than a great cultivator in the prominent divine realm, but his divine sense was slightly inferior. The collision at the moment, he had already suffered some minor injuries. On the other side, a middle-aged man in a green robe had unknowingly appeared beside Hong Wanshan. The way he looked at Test Jianfeng was somewhat condescending, and the corners of his mouth curled into a faint smile. To be able to take one of my attacks head-on and only suffer minor injuries, your strength is not bad. At this moment, Hong Wanshan secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He cupped his hands towards the middle-aged man in green robes and said, "Fortunately, Elder Shan came in time. Otherwise, this demon would have run rampant. Sect Master Hong is too courteous. Dingshu Sword Sect and my Great Evolution Sect are on the same side. I, Chen Shi, have no reason to sit by and watch Dingshu Sword Sect suffer." Chen Shi smiled and looked at Test Jianfeng. "You are indeed a genius to be able to unleash attacks that are not weaker than those at the visionary divine realm with just the strength of the airborne realm. I never thought that there would be someone like you in the G-clan back then. However, you slaughtered so many disciples of the void-fixing sword sect for no reason today, and you've truly committed a heinous crime. You should obediently allow yourself to be captured and follow me to the Grand Evolution Sect to admit your crimes. Otherwise, don't blame me for bullying you." He had also seen the 7 slaughtering gods and demons against the stars. For such a martial art, Shen Shi was also tempted. However, he was an elder of the Great Evolution Sect after all. He could not show too much eagerness in front of outsiders. As long as he took Test Jianfeng away, he would have a way to make the other party obediently hand over the martial art. Hearing that, Test Jianfeng wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at Shen Shi coldly. He said indifferently, "If the Great Evolution Sect wants to get involved in this mess, I'm afraid you have to think carefully about whether it is worth it for the void-fixing sword sect." Ridiculous. My Great Evolution Sect is one of the top sects in the Beichuan realm. You, a mere airborne realm cultivator, dare to speak so arrogantly. You are really shameless. Top sects? Test Jianfeng's lips curled into a cold smile, but there was no fear in his heart. As for the name of the Great Evolution Sect, naturally, he had heard of it. However, what he did not expect was that the void-fixing sword sect was related to the Great Evolution Sect. Moreover, Hong Wanshan had sent a message to the Great Evolution Sect at some point in time, and finally invited Shen Shi over. After all, Test Jianfeng did not believe that all of this was just a coincidence. If it was an ordinary airborne realm cultivator, no. Not to mention airborne realm cultivators, even prominent divine realm cultivators would not easily offend the Great Evolution Sect, and they would not dare to be enemies with them. A top sect in a large region, it was at least in existence that had a god martial realm cultivator in charge. Moreover, the Great Evolution Sect was one of the best. However, Test Jianfeng directly took out an identity token and threw it over. He sneered and said, "I am an elder of the Yuan sect. Is your Great Evolution Sect sure that you want to be enemies with my Yuan sect?" Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone's expression changed drastically. Even Shen Shi's expression changed slightly. He reached out his hand and caught the identity token. After checking the authenticity of the token in his hand, his expression changed again. "So you are from the Yuan sect. No wonder you are so powerful." Shen Shi threw the token back, and his arrogant expression was much more restrained. The Yuan sect was at its peak. Although the Great Evolution Sect was not weak, compared to the Yuan sect that had a formation master in charge, they were still a little lacking. As for Hong Wanshan on the other side, they were completely in shock. Yuan sect. He did not expect that the remaining member of the Ji family in front of him not only mastered a terrifying martial art, but also became an outer sect elder of the Yuan sect. Such an unforeseen event. It made Hong Wenshan's heart tremble. After keeping the token, Test Jianfeng said, "This is a grudge between me and the Dingshu sword sect. It is better for you not to interfere. Elder Shen, he is merely a remnant of the Ji clan. How could he possibly be an elder of the Sky Origin sect? The way I see it, the token in his hand must be a fake. I implore Elder Shen to kill this bastard and return the glory of our Dingshu sword sect." As soon as Test Jianfeng finished speaking, Hong Wenshan immediately opened his mouth. It did not matter whether the other party was an elder of the Yuan sect or not. The only person who could deal with Test Jianfeng was Shen Shi. If the other party backed out, the Dingshu sword sect would not be able to escape today. Just as Shen Shi was hesitating, beside him, Test Jianfeng had already made his move. Celestial Ghost 7 kills against the stars. When the shocking sword in tint exploded, it made Shen Shi's heart tremble. When he was about to attack, he thought of the token in the other party's hand and could not help but hesitate for a moment. It was this short moment of hesitation. The shocking sword swallowed Hong Wenshan. As soon as the purple and green sword aura rose, it was destroyed. It seemed like only a moment had passed. A long sword pierced through his throat, causing blood to splatter. Hong Wenshan covered his throat with one hand. Blood flowed uncontrollably from between his fingers and the back of his neck. He could not help but cover the wound with both hands, trying to stop the blood from flowing. However, in addition to the injury to his physical body, the terrifying sword in tint had also severely injured his mind. Under the pincer attack of the two, Hong Wenshan no longer had a chance to survive. Test Jianfeng looked indifferently at Hong Wenshan, who staggered back and fell to the ground. The killing intent in his heart suddenly dissipated. When Hong Wenshan took his last breath, he shot his gaze towards the disciples of the void-stabilizing sword sect and the few remaining elders at the domain-enlightened spirit god realm. In the end, he executed the 7 slaughter, star-defying, and annihilated the last few cultivators at the spirit martial realm or above. At this point, Test Jianfeng sheathed his sword and did not attack anyone else. From today onwards, the Dingshu sword sect no longer exists. As soon as he finished speaking, he took Hong Wenshan's golden silk cloud robe and flew away. As for the disciples of the Dingshu sword sect, they secretly heaved sighs of relief at this moment. They felt like they had survived a calamity. It could not be helped. Test Jianfeng's strength was truly too strong. Even the airborne realm experts of the Grand Elders sect were no match for him. Although the experts at the spirit martial realm and above were all dead, they would definitely have no chance of survival if he attacked them. Fortunately, in the end, Test Jianfeng did not kill them all. After Test Jianfeng left, the remaining disciples of the Dingshu sword sect turned their gazes to Shen Shi. Although they were either dead or gone, this elder of the Great Evolution sect was still here. Immediately, a disciple of the Dingshu sword sect thought of something and went up to ask respectfully, "May I ask Elder Shen what we should do next?" A strange smile appeared on Shen Shi's face when he heard that, causing the disciple's heart to skip a beat. Hong Wenshan and the others are dead. As disciples of the Dingshu sword sect, how can you let them die alone? In my opinion, you should go accompany them. As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying attack instantly killed that disciple of the Dingshu sword sect. The sudden turn of events caused the others to be unable to react. But soon, everyone fled in all directions. They did not know why Shen Shi wanted to kill them, but they knew one thing. When facing a great cultivator at the prominent divine stage, the remaining members of the Dingshu sword sect were absolutely no match for him. If I let all of you leave today, where would my reputation go? He spread out his divine will, and all the fleeing disciples of the Dingshu sword sect paused. Then, as if they had suffered a terrifying attack, they all exploded in the air. The strongest among them were at the true martial realm. In front of a great cultivator at the prominent divine stage, they were pitifully weak. Soon, there was not a single person left alive in the entire Dingshu sword sect. Shen Shi immediately found the treasury of the Dingshu sword sect. After looting everything inside, he watched as all the corpses returned to heaven and earth. Then, he turned and left. To him, today, He was so frightened by Yuanzong that he did not dare to attack. This was a stain that could never be erased. Only by killing all the witnesses would no one know about this matter. Moreover, Hong Wenshan was dead. The treasures of the Dingshu sword sect over the years were also a huge fortune. With the current strength of the Dingshu sword sect, it was impossible for them to keep it. Xin Shi could not leave it behind to benefit others. Anyway, the Dingshu sword sect was destroyed by the remnants of the Ji family. What did it have to do with him, an elder of the Great Evolution sect? Chapter 307. The Destruction of the Dingshu Sword Sect. It caused quite a commotion in the Longtai Spirit Zone. After all, it was a sect with a peak Zephyr Realm cultivator. Although it did not have a prominent divine stage cultivator, it was still quite famous in the cultivation world. However, when they found out that the person who destroyed the Dingshu sword sect was the descendant of the Ji family, an elder of the Jinyuan sect, some of the forces who wanted to take the opportunity to make a big fuss about it all stopped. The feud between the Ji family and the Dingshu sword sect. Although it was not known in the Longtai Spirit Zone, it was not a secret in the eyes of the various sections. As for Test Jinfeng, if he did not join the Yuan Zone, then the destruction of the Dingshu sword sect would not have ended so quickly. But the Yuan Zone's name was still there. No other sect dared to have any ideas about him. Dingshu sword sect? When he heard the news, Qin Shujian was slightly stunned. Then, he came back to his senses and said, "Elder Tu, did you encounter any trouble? I heard that people from the Great Evolution sect appeared, but I'm not sure. If the Great Evolution sect did not do anything, then let's ignore them for now. Pay attention to Elder Jian's whereabouts and ensure that he can safely return to the sect." Yes, Zhao Shanlin accepted the order and left. In the courtyard, only Qin Shujian sat there alone. The osmanthus flowers on the tree were still in full bloom. The difference was that compared to before, the osmanthus fragrance was even more fragrant now. To be able to destroy a mid-level force with his own strength, it seems that Test Jinfeng's strength is stronger than I thought. Although the Liangshan Spirit Zone and the Longtai Spirit Zone were separated by a large zone, with the Yuan Zone's current strength, it was not difficult to obtain news from other large zones. When Test Jinfeng broke through to the airborne realm before, Qin Shujian could clearly feel the sword will that was emitted. If the sword will that he had comprehended was only 20%, then the sword will that Test Jinfeng had comprehended was at least 40% or 50%. When Test Jinfeng joined the Yuan Zone, he had not even stepped through the threshold of sword will. Now, he had surpassed him and walked further on the path of sword will than Yi Futian. Qin Shujian was basically certain. Test Jinfeng was indeed a genius in the way of the sword. However, the Dingshu sword sect was a sect that had existed for a long time, so the forces behind it were equally complicated. Now, the sect was destroyed. It was hard to guarantee that no one would secretly attack Test Jinfeng. While the other party was already an airborne realm cultivator, it was not as if there were no airborne realm cultivators who could match him, not to mention anything else. Within the Great Evolution sect alone, there were prominent divine stage cultivators and god martial stage cultivators. Therefore, that was why he had ordered Zhao Shanlin to pay attention to Test Jinfeng's whereabouts, so as to prevent this talented elder from falling into the hands of other experts. He temporarily put aside the matter of the testing sword peak. Qin Shujian turned his attention to himself. During this period of closed-door cultivation, he had made a lot of progress towards the 28th level of the Origin Returning Ancestral Canon, but he still needed some time to break through. Long-term seclusion. It was inevitable that going too far would be as bad as falling short. Therefore, Qin Shujian had temporarily come out of seclusion this time. Not only did he want to relax his mind, but he also wanted to assess the recent progress of the Yuan sect disciples. Seriously speaking, it has been more than a year since the Yuan sect was established. It has been almost 2 years since I came to this world. Thinking back to when he was just a small bandit, and now he was the master of a sect, the difference between them could be said to be huge. Originally, according to his plan, he might go further and further on the path of a bandit, or perhaps later on when the players developed, he would be chased everywhere. Just like now, this was something that Qin Shujian had never thought of. Immediately after, He got up, left his courtyard, and walked into the Yuan sect. Liang Mountain had expanded a lot. It also caused the sect's area to become much larger. However, for cultivators, such a change in area would not take too much time to travel. Greetings, Sect Master. Sect Master. When they saw Qin Shujian, many people stopped to salute and greet him. Qin Shujian also nodded slightly. Along the way, he met many Yuan sect disciples. His spiritual eye had never stopped from the beginning to the end. Fortunately, among the people he met, although not everyone's loyalty was very high, at least there was no negative situation. This meant that, among these people, there were no spies from other forces, and they all had a sense of belonging to the Yuan sect. As for the strength of their sense of belonging, it could be strengthened with time. After all, since the establishment of the Yuan sect, they had recruited several batches of disciples. Seriously speaking, the oldest batch of disciples was only a little more than a year old, and their sense of belonging was not that strong. Soon, the Chengwu Hall appeared in Qin Shujian's line of sight. In front of the main hall, there were also two inner-sect deacons guarding. The moment they saw Qin Shujian, the two of them hurriedly bowed and saluted. Greetings, Sect Master. No need for formalities, Qin Shujian said with a faint smile. Go and summon the other elders. I have something to discuss with them. Yes. Not long after, a group of elders led by Jing Fong had arrived one after another. When they saw Qin Shujian on the main seat, they all saluted and said, Sect Master. Once all the elders had arrived, Su Yun's eyes lit up. Qin Shujian then opened his mouth and said, This time I called you here because I have something to discuss with the elders. I don't know what it is, Sect Master, please tell us. Su Yuanming cupped his hands and said. Qin Shujian said, There are many disciples in the sect now, but their cultivation realms are extremely vague, and it is difficult to measure their realms in real time. It is also difficult to find some of the more talented disciples, and to train them heavily. So, I have decided to hold a disciple assessment in 3 months. After saying that, suddenly, many elders looked puzzled. But there were also some people who understood. Zhang Fong stroked his beard and said, The disciple assessment is indeed necessary, but how does Sect Master plan to conduct the assessment? The disciple assessment is not divided into the outer and inner sect, and is only based on realms. For example, those below the 5th level of the basic martial realm are in one group, and those above the 5th level are in another group. As for the true martial realm, it is divided into the 4th level of the true martial realm, the inner aura stage, and the outer aura stage. As for the spirit martial realm, it is also divided into the spirit god realm, the Zephyr realm, and the vision domain realm. But now, the strongest disciple in the sect is at the spirit god realm, so the highest level in the assessment will only be the 1st level of the spirit martial realm. At this point, Qin Shujian paused for a moment. Then, he continued, Everyone in the top 10 will receive a corresponding amount of contribution points, as well as rewards such as cultivation methods, martial arts, divine weapons, and elixirs. Moreover, the top 10 will have the opportunity to challenge a disciple of a higher status with their own identity. The challenger's realm cannot be higher than the one being challenged. If an outer sect disciple succeeds in challenging an inner sect disciple, then the outer sect disciple will automatically be promoted to an inner sect disciple, and the inner sect disciple who loses will be demoted to an outer sect disciple. The purpose of this assessment is to urge the disciples to cultivate diligently and not to easily develop the intention to cheat. It is also to discover some disciples with better talent and focus on nurturing them. Hearing that, for a moment, no one replied. If this news were to spread, it would definitely cause a great commotion, especially when a disciple was promoted and replaced the position of the defeated disciple. It would be a great loss to many disciples. For example, an inner sect disciple would need to spend 2,000 contribution points to become an elite disciple, and an elite disciple would need to spend 10,000 contribution points to become an elite disciple. Such a span of contribution points. If someone was lucky enough to win this battle, it would save a lot of time. It would also cause some people who were weaker but had a lot of contribution points and wanted to quickly advance their status to worry, so as to prevent others from taking advantage of them. After a long time, Zheng Fong said, I have no objection to sect master's decision. Presently, the disciples of the sect are not very competitive. Although they don't slack off too much, there are still some signs of lifelessness. If we do this, it will be a long-term plan. This is a good idea, but if it is too frequent, it may be too much as bad as not enough. How often does sect master plan to hold it? Su Yuanming said. Elders, how often do you think it should be? I think it should be held once every 3 years. Once every 3 years. Hearing that, Qin Shujian also pondered for a while and said, once every 3 years is normal. I wonder if the other elders have any other thoughts? I have no objection to Elder Su's words. The assessment once every 3 years is just right. The other elders also spoke in agreement. Firstly, it was because 3 years was just right. Secondly, although Su Yuanming was not one of the 3 elders, he was also highly regarded by Qin Shujian. There was no need to offend him over such a small matter. Subsequently, everyone discussed the details of the competition, and the matter was finally settled. As for Niu Dali, he did not speak from beginning to end. In the demon vein, apart from him being an elder, there were no disciples or deacons under him. The other demonic beasts were more like his captive to do odd jobs, and had little to do with Yuanzong. At most, some demonic beasts would be the legs of Yuanzong's disciples. After leaving Chengwu Hall, Qin Shujian found Su Yuanming again. I wonder how the spiritual paper that Elder Su purchased is now. I have purchased a lot of spiritual paper, but Sect Master has been cultivating in seclusion and I did not have the chance to give it to him. Now that Sect Master is here, it is just right. Su Yuanming smiled and the storage ring on his finger flashed. A thick stack of spiritual paper appeared in his hand. Immediately, Qin Shujian reached out to take it and put away the spiritual paper. He was not surprised that Su Yuanming had a storage ring. The current him. He was no longer the inexperienced little sect master. Previously, Qin Shujian thought that the storage ring was extremely precious, but now he realized that although the storage ring was precious, it was not really invaluable. An ordinary storage ring. In fact, it was not worth much. Of course, these storage rings did not have a lot of space. The storage ring that Marquis Baiyun had given him was already of good quality. Chapter 308. After obtaining the spiritual paper, Qin Shujian turned around and went back. Although the Origin sect had the title of a top sect, it was still lacking compared to the top sections. At least, in terms of cultivation techniques, there was no inheritance that truly belonged to the sect. Currently, the cultivation techniques that the Origin sect stored in the library pavilion were still the Origin scriptures of the upper true rank. As for the Origin returning ancestral scripture, he never had the time to store it. Even the foundational cultivation techniques that the disciples taught were still mainly based on the Origin scripture. What Qin Shujian wanted to do now, it was to completely write down the Origin returning ancestral scripture that could reach the prominent divine stage and preserve it as the inheritance of the sect. A gentle breeze blew in the courtyard. The green spiritual paper was neatly placed on the stone table. No matter how the breeze blew, the paper seemed to have a great weight and did not flutter at all. He took a withered branch from the osmanthus tree. Qin Shujian did not touch the ink and directly used the withered branch as a brush and the heaven and earth spirit chi as ink. Then, he began to write on the spiritual paper. As the withered branch fell, the heaven and earth spirit chi suddenly moved. Dense heaven and earth spirit chi gathered at the end of the withered branch. As the true Origin surged, a faint golden light flickered within. Immediately after, the brush fell. Boom! A gust of wind surged in the courtyard. The spiritual paper, which was originally not light, seemed to have become heavier at this moment. Qin Shujian, on the other hand, did not take his eyes off it. He straightened his back and held the dried branch in his hand as he wrote down everything about the Gue Yuan ancestral canon. Thousands of tiny words were written on a single page of spirit paper, and they were perfectly arranged on the page. This was the Origin returning ancestral scripture that was related to the martial arts chapter. After writing the martial arts chapter, Qin Shujian took another piece of spiritual paper and spent half an hour to finish writing the true martial chapter. When it came to the spiritual martial chapter, then, there was a new piece of spiritual paper. Martial arts. True martial. Spiritual martial. 3 levels, a total of 30 to 50,000 words. As the content was written, the green spirit paper was filled with dense light golden words. If one were to look at them carefully, they would even feel as if these words had come alive. This was one of the methods to reach the spirit god manifestation. When he was writing something, he could pour his essence, energy, and spirit into it. Every stroke seemed to contain great mysteries. These 3 pieces of spiritual paper contained Qin Shujian's comprehension of the Gui Yuan ancestral canon, but the remnant divine sense on it was extremely limited. Once it was comprehended too many times, the divine sense on it would dissipate. When that time comes, there wouldn't be any changes to the contents of the spirit paper, but it would be impossible to obtain the charm of the spirit paper. This could be considered one of his wicked tastes. It was placed in the book collection pavilion for the fated person. After he finished writing the Guiyuan ancestral canon, Qin Shujian recorded his understanding of the Tao of forging and the Tao of array formations on spiritual paper. Although these things, he had obtained it from the ancestral smithing canon. However, as he continued to deduce, the things he obtained had already surpassed the scope of the original foundry ancestral canon and reached a whole new level. Therefore, it was no longer appropriate to continue using the foundry ancestral canon. This time, Qin Shujian was completely using his identity as a grandmaster of the 2 Daos to write down his comprehension of the 2 Daos. Right now, in the 3 halls of alchemy, forging, and array formations. Strictly speaking, there was no complete inheritance. Although Shen Yuqing and Shen Yuhua came from the Pill Cauldron sect and had their own inheritance, but the Pill Cauldron sect was the Pill Cauldron sect. The Yuan sect was the Yuan sect. If they blindly relied on the things of other sects, it would inevitably be insufficient as their own sect's inheritance, especially now in the Array Formation Hall. Although this hall had been officially established, but in the end, there were only some new array masters who had joined as support, and his reputation as a grandmaster of array formations was backing them up. But seriously speaking, the current array formation hall was completely an empty shell, and it was all supported by those array masters. But among these array masters, a few were willing to pass down their mantle completely. More importantly, the other party joined the Yuan sect for the chance to obtain more profound array formations, and not purely to educate their disciples. If the array formation hall didn't have anything substantial to attract the attention of these array masters, even if the Yuan sect was powerful now, it would be difficult to keep too many people, unless the Yuan sect had enough and practical things to attract them. Therefore, this was also one of the reasons why Qin Shujian planned to write down his comprehension of the 2 Das. As for the other reason, that was because, if he didn't leave enough things behind, it would be easy to nurture ordinary talents, but it would be impossible to nurture masters. Sitting in the courtyard for a long time, for the first time, Qin Shujian recalled the knowledge of the 2 Daos that he had obtained. After a long time, the hand that was holding the withered branch moved. It was different from passing down the Guiyuan ancestral canon. This time, what he left on the spiritual paper was not simple words, but an array that contained thousands of changes. This was an array formation. It was a legacy martial art that Qin Shujian had engraved after combining all of his knowledge and memories from the time he was a formation master It was also a piece of spiritual paper. How much one could comprehend depended on the person. As for the inheritance for the casting hall, Qin Shujian did almost the same. But the difference was, what was recorded on the spiritual paper was no longer an array, but a simple rune record, as well as the casting methods left behind at each stage. These things, they were not written in ordinary words, but more like crystals, recording the inheritance of divine will. It was a simple stroke. In the eyes of different people, it contained different things, but it was different from the inheritance of crystals. As long as there was spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the inheritance left on the spiritual paper would not dissipate. Once the spiritual energy of heaven and earth disappeared, the inheritance would disappear as the spiritual energy on the spiritual paper gradually dissipated. In the inheritance of crystals, there was no such concern. No matter how time passed, as long as the inheritance inside was not destroyed, it would be preserved. After recording the 2 daos of casting and array, Qin Shujian's hand suddenly stopped. Then, he checked his own attributes. During this period of time, his life force had recovered to more than 1 million points. As for the special martial arts column, the words that could be upgraded also appeared on the Celestial Light Alchemy scroll. Just thinking about it for a moment, Qin Shujian directly consumed 1 million life force to upgrade the Celestial Light Alchemy scroll to the master level. Very soon, everything about the alchemy master had already appeared in his mind. In the past, it would take a long time to completely digest such a huge amount of memory. But as his divine will was getting stronger and stronger, it only took less than 1 or 2 minutes to digest this memory. So this is the method of an alchemy master. Qin Shujian's expression changed slightly, and he was secretly sighing. In terms of profoundness, the path of alchemy was not the slightest bit worse than the other two. But the difference was, the Tao of forging was already an offensive technique derived from the Tao of formations, while the Tao of pill refinement was indeed an auxiliary technique. Whether it was a medicinal pill to increase one's realm, or other methods to enhance vital essence, as well as poisonous pills with incomparable toxicity, they were not real means to fight against the enemy, and could only play an auxiliary role. Of course, if these auxiliary methods were used properly, they could also play a great role. Subsequently, Qin Shujian wrote down everything he knew about himself as an alchemy grandmaster. At this point, the 3 halls could be considered to have a certain level of inheritance, which could allow people to reach the master level. For the current Yuan Zone, only people at the master level could play a real role. As for the so-called upper grade, middle grade, and lower grade, for the top sects, they could only barely be regarded as a beginner. But to be a real existence, one needed to be at the master level. Of course, for the sects of the spirit domain, or even other sects, it was enough to have 3 masters at the upper grade realm. But Yuan Zong was different. So, it was also destined that Yuan Zong's vision must be at the master level. But regrettably, any master-level expert would have been treated as a guest of honor by other sects or forces, or had joined the imperial court. Although his reputation as a master of 2 paths was well known, people who could be promoted to the master level would not be attracted by the title of a master. After all, although a master was strong, a master was only 1 step away from the master level. At their level, it was also understandable. If they wanted to be promoted to the master level, it was not enough to have a master-level expert to guide them. More importantly, they needed to rely on their own comprehension to have the hope of breaking through this threshold. Or else, Qin Shujian was not the only master in the world. Then, long before he appeared, these grandmasters would have been recruited by other grandmasters. So, to have a master-level expert, in addition to training by oneself, one could also rely on luck to see if there was such an expert who came. However, although there were still many array masters and forging masters coming to Cold Mountain City during this period, there was not a single master-level expert. After he had recorded everything down, Yizichin was stunned. Qin Shujian first went to the library and placed the 3 pages of spiritual paper on the first 3 floors of the library in a clever way without being noticed by others. That's right. As for the spiritual martial arts section of the Gue Yuan ancestral canon, he did not place it on the 4th or 5th floor. He simply placed it on the 3rd floor and mixed it with other spiritual level martial arts. In addition, the martial arts of the other 3 halls. Qin Shujian did not place it in the library. Instead, he left it in the hands of the 3 halls. He did this. He was not worried that the current system of the 3 halls would be unbalanced. After all, no one would be able to become an expert if they got the inheritance. Even if they had the martial arts secret book in hand, they also needed the guidance of senior experts so that they could take less detours. Chapter 309. Sect Master. This is the experience of an alchemy master. Shen Yuhua looked at the thing in her hand, and the shock in her heart was incomparable to that of others. Although she cultivated the Celestial Light Alchemy Scroll, there were also methods that pointed directly to an alchemy master. But martial arts were dead after all. Humans were alive. Now, the experience of an alchemy master in her hand was more like a complete display of alchemy. From a low-grade alchemist to an alchemy master, everything was displayed in it. Although in Shen Yuhua's eyes, the thing in her hand was somewhat similar to the celestial light alchemy scroll, but in terms of detail and exquisiteness, it was a bit more profound than the celestial light alchemy scroll that she was cultivating now. So, she didn't think about the celestial light alchemy scroll. After all, the path of alchemy was different and led to the same goal. The celestial light alchemy scroll was left behind by the sect master of the alchemy sect. It was rumored that he was also a top alchemy master. As for the master-level figure, perhaps at this point, they had already reached the level where different paths lead to the same destination. Looking at the shocked Shen Yuhua, Qin Shujian said, "This is a record of an alchemy master that I obtained. It can be regarded as the inheritance of the alchemy hall. You are now a high-grade alchemist. In time, you have a great chance of breaking through this threshold. If the sect can have one more alchemy master, its strength will definitely improve greatly." The alchemy method of an alchemy master. It was enough to refine elixirs that even a great cultivator in the god martial arts realm needed. At this level, only then could it be regarded as the mainstay of a sect. Moreover, the alchemy master's alchemy speed, success rate, and quality were far from what a high-grade alchemist could compare to. Now, the Origin sect had set up shops in various cities, specializing in selling elixirs, divine weapons, array discs, and other things. Compared to the latter two, having the reputation of two masters, Qin Shujian, led to good sales. The former seemed very ordinary. Many cultivators bought things. In addition to focusing on the effect, the reputation of an alchemist also played a great role. If it was the alchemy sect, it was quite famous in the cultivation world. But when it came to Shen Yuhua, almost no one had heard of her, especially when the other party was only a high-grade alchemist. No matter what level of comparison, she didn't have any big advantage. But if Shen Yuhua was an alchemy grandmaster, then it would be completely different. However, he gave the Pill Dao grandmaster's handwritten record to the other party. Whether or not he could make use of this opportunity to break through that threshold in one go was still unknown. Shen Yuhua had no idea what Qin Shujian was thinking. Her current state of mind. All of them had already landed on the alchemy master's handwritten record in his hands. After suppressing the excitement in her heart, a faint smile appeared on Shen Yuhua's delicate face. She said, "Sect master, don't worry. With this alchemy master's handwritten record, I will definitely be able to become an alchemy master. Then I'll wait for Elder Yuhua's good news." Qin Shujian also smiled. He could understand why Shen Yuhua was so confident. The fact that the other party was already a high-grade alchemist at such a young age proved that he had outstanding talent in alchemy. Such a person, as long as he was given a chance, becoming a Grandmaster Alchemist would definitely not be a problem. As for the Grandmaster of Alchemy, who was one level higher than that, Qin Shujian was not so sure. After all, when it came to the Grandmaster level, it was not possible to reach this level by relying on talent alone. At least, as a Grandmaster of two paths, he had a lot of say about this. After leaving the record, Qin Shujian did not stay for long. He turned around and left the alchemy hall. Only Shen Yuhua was still standing in the same place. Her mind was still immersed in the alchemy master's handwritten record in her hands. As for why Qin Shujian could have such a thing, she did not have much doubt in her heart. In the current cultivation world, it was rumored that their sect master was the reincarnation of a mighty figure. Otherwise, it would be impossible for his cultivation to progress so quickly in such a short period of time. Moreover, it was shocking that he could become a grandmaster of two paths. For this, in Shen Yuhua's view, this rumor should not be false. Since the other party was the reincarnation of a mighty figure, then it was not strange that he had befriended an alchemy master or even an alchemy master in his previous life. In this way, it was completely reasonable that he had a handwritten record of an alchemy master in his hands. As for whether Qin Shujian was an alchemy master or not, Shen Yuhua had never thought about it. It could be said that he was a grandmaster of two paths in forging and array formations. It could be said that it was because the two paths were interconnected. But it could be said that he also had profound attainments in alchemy. That would be a little shocking. After leaving the alchemy hall, Qin Shujian went to the alchemy hall again and gave the record to Shen Yuqing. Ignoring the other party's shock and surprise, he finally went to the array formation hall. In the main hall of the array formation hall, Sect Master, an old man who looked to be in his 50s and whose hair and beard were slightly white but whose eyes were still bright and full of spirit, bowed respectfully when he saw Qin Shujian arrive. Xiang Haogan. He was once an itinerant cultivator who was lucky enough to obtain the inheritance of an array master. After painstakingly cultivating and researching, he could be considered to have reached a higher level in the Tao of array formations. He had quite a reputation in the cultivation world. He was also one of the 13 array masters who came to the array formation hall this time. He stood out among the other array masters and won the position of hall master of the array formation hall. During this period of time, has Elder Xiang adapted to the matters of the array formation hall? Qin Shujian said with a faint smile. As for Xiang Haogan in front of him, he also thought highly of him. In addition to being a high-grade array master, the other party was also a great cultivator of the divine martial realm. That's right, divine martial realm. It could be said that in terms of realm alone, he, the sect master, was a little lower than the other party. A great cultivator of the divine martial realm. His lifespan was at least between 1,000 to 3,000 years. And after breaking through to the divine martial realm, cultivators could have a chance to regain their youth, but not everyone wanted to regain their youthful appearance. In the end, after cultivating for hundreds or thousands of years, what kind of people had he not seen and experienced countless things? As for appearance, many great cultivators had long stopped caring. Therefore, although Xiang Haogan in front of him was old, he was actually only a few hundred years old. Compared to the long lifespan of the divine martial realm, he still had a long way to go. It was precisely because of this. Only then did the other party have time to slowly pursue the Tao of array formation. Hearing Qin Shujian's question, "Everything is normal," Xiang Haogan first smiled, then asked, "This old man still doesn't know why the sect master is here today. Now that the array formation hall has just been built, everything inside is now supported by Hall Master Xiang and the others. It's a little unreasonable." As he spoke, Qin Shujian took out the spirit paper that recorded the array formation and handed it over. "This is some of my understanding of the Tao of array formation. I'll leave it in the array formation hall. I hope that one day, Hall Master Xiang or the others will be able to reach the master realm." Understanding of array formation. Looking at the spirit paper in front of him, Xiang Haogan, a great cultivator of the divine martial realm, couldn't help but become excited at this moment. When he respectfully took the spirit paper with both hands, he felt that the spirit paper in his hand weighed more than tens of thousands of caddies, as if it could easily crush a huge rock. Even ordinary cultivators might not be able to pick it up. For this, Xiang Haogan wasn't surprised. On the spirit paper was a handwritten record personally left behind by a grandmaster of array formation. It also contained the insights of a grandmaster of array formation, a grandmaster expert. Every word and action was cut from the Tao. The ink left behind was not something that ordinary people could bear. After receiving the grandmaster's handwritten record, Xiang Haogan's heart became even more excited. Why did he join the Yuan sect? Apart from being tired of the life of an itinerant cultivator and wanting to join a sect, he came for Qin Shujian, the grandmaster of array formation. However, since he joined the Yuan sect and became the hall master of the array formation hall, Qin Shujian went into seclusion, causing Xiang Haogan, the hall master of the array formation hall, to not have the chance to ask him for advice. Of course, although Xiang Haogan hoped to receive advice from him, he also understood that this kind of thing couldn't be rushed. Therefore, he calmly stayed in the array formation hall and taught some disciples of the sect, as well as other array formation masters, about his understanding of the Tao of array formation. Qin Shujian said, "The handwritten record here can be used by anyone in the array formation hall to study, but it can't be taken out of the array formation hall, nor can it fall into the hands of others. I hope Hall Master Xiang can remember this." "Sect Master, don't worry. As long as I'm here, this handwritten record will not fall into the hands of others, Xiang Haogan said solemnly with a solemn expression. Regarding the preciousness of this handwritten record, naturally, he knew in his heart. If someone knew that there was a master's handwritten record in the array formation hall, it would probably cause some people to have bad intentions. However, Xiang Haogan had absolute confidence. Not only was he an upper-grade array formation master, but he was also a god martial arts realm cultivator. In the Yuan sect, apart from a few consecrated guests, no one else could match him in terms of cultivation base. Currently, in the array formation hall, apart from being the hall master, he was also the top expert in the array formation hall. Among the 30 people sent by the Marquis Bayun mansion, if there are any good seedlings, focus on nurturing them. Within 3 years, at least 2 of them must be promoted to upper grade. Sect Master, don't worry. I know what to do. Xiang Haogan nodded. As the hall master of the array formation hall, he was also aware of the existence of the 30 people from the Marquis Bayun mansion. According to my observation, among the 5 middle-grade array formation masters, there are a few who are quite talented and have almost reached the peak of their current realm. It won't be difficult for them to break through this threshold. With Hall Master Xiang here, I naturally don't have to worry. Qin Shujian suddenly stood up and said, I have other matters to attend to, so I'll leave the matters of the array formation hall to Hall Master Xiang. I won't let you down, Sect Master. That's good. Qin Shujian smiled faintly. Soon after, his spiritual eye flickered once again as he understood what was going on. 83 loyalty points. It was much higher than before. As for Xiang Haogan, he felt a chill run down his spine. Looking at Qin Shujian's back, there was some confusion in his eyes. Chapter 310. Did I hear wrongly? Sect Grand Competition? Is this for real? For some reason, this method is somewhat familiar. After hearing the news of the Sect Grand Competition in 3 months, all the disciples of Yuan's sect were excited. Many of the players complained helplessly. As expected, every sect couldn't do without the Sect Grand Competition. However, after hearing the rewards and the specific rules of the competition, the players were excited again. Or rather, any one of them had a chance to obtain contribution points and other rewards. For them, it was an irresistible temptation. Of course, not everyone liked such a Sect Grand Competition. For example, I've just been promoted to a pro-disciple, and now you're telling me that I'll lose my status as a pro-disciple if I fail the challenge. Looking at the competition system, Wang Gang felt his heart, liver, spleen, and kidneys hurt. A few big question marks were engraved on his forehead. Previously, in order to enter the 4th floor of the library and find a chance to learn divine-level cultivation methods and martial arts, he deliberately used up the 10,000 contribution points that he needed and promoted his status from an elite disciple to a pro-disciple. But now, Wang Gang already felt it. There were probably many people eyeing his position as a pro-disciple. After all, there was a chance to pick up 10,000 contribution points for free. No one could resist such a temptation. As for some disciples who wanted to promote their own level, they suppressed the impulse in their hearts at this time. In the original situation, as long as they had enough contribution points, they didn't have to worry about promoting their own level. At most, it was a question of whether they were willing to spend the contribution points. But now it was different. If they didn't pay attention, they would make a wedding dress for others. Unless they were very confident in their own strength, they would suppress the original impulse to promote. Although after promotion, they could enjoy more treatment. But they had to have the strength to protect it. In the next period of time, there was nothing else to do. While Qin Shujian was cultivating peacefully, Qin Shujian suddenly felt something. In the Great Zhao, it was already turbulent again. The cause of the matter was still because Yuan sect's players killed Marquis Qianshan's men. Originally, it was very common for opposing forces to send people to assassinate each other. However, it was precisely this matter that caused a huge uproar. The reason was due to the fact that the players were immortal. They were much more daring than the natives. In a short period of time, they had caused a lot of chaos. Although players could revive if they died at the hands of other players, Not only would resurrection take a certain amount of time, but his strength would also drop by 1 level. For cultivators, after the spirit martial realm, every drop in cultivation level required years, or even decades of bitter cultivation to make up for it. Moreover, in the 3 days of blank time, some places had also fallen into a situation where there was no leader. In this way, the impact was even greater. Even if the players had been in the game for a long time, no one would have thought of using the players to do such a thing. Even if some forces used the players to fight, they had never thought of using the players as assassins. In the end, only then did the others realize. Using players as assassins was even more effective than using top-tier assassins. Therefore, just as Marquis Qianshan issued a mission for the players to deal with the other players, the Imperial Court, which was confronting him in the Thousand Mountains Prefecture, issued another assassination mission for the players. Before the first wave was over, one wave after another. If Sky Origin Sect's mission could only affect 10,000 players, then the number of players affected by the Imperial Court in Thousand Mountains Prefecture would be in the hundreds of thousands. 2 waves of players successively. Instantly, Marquis Qianshan was in a terrible fix. There was no choice. There were simply too many players. Moreover, the trait of not dying made it impossible to kill all the players. In this way, it was almost impossible to completely eliminate the players. What Marquis Qianshan could do was to use the players in his own camp to deal with the players in the other 2 camps. However, such a passive defense was not a long-term solution. Moreover, it was a battle within his own territory. No matter if he won or lost, he would be the one at a disadvantage in the end. However, if Marquis Qianshan wanted to use the same method to deal with the Imperial Court, he was unable to do so. There was no other reason. It was because there were not enough players in his own territory to deal with the other players in the other 2 camps. He had already mobilized all the players in his territory. If he wanted to fight back, there was no chance of that happening. Yongchang City. This was also one of the top 3 big cities in the Thousand Mountains Prefecture. However, it was now under the control of the Imperial Court. It was connected to the territory under Marquis Qianshan's control. It was the main force that was guarding this place and stopping Marquis Qianshan from advancing. At this moment, in Yongchang City, the original location of the City Lord Mansion had now become a meeting hall. All the generals were gathered here. Now that Gu Chongqing's territory has been stirred up by the Inhumans, it is time to clean up the mess. I suggest we take this opportunity to attack and take down the traitors in one fell swoop. Then, we can completely reclaim the Thousand Mountains Prefecture. On the main seat, Yin Saija was dressed casually. His resolute face still had the aura of iron and blood, giving off a strong sense of oppression. After he finished speaking, there was a moment of silence in the hall. A general in yellow armor cupped his fists and said, "Gu Chongqing is not a problem. However, the 2 array masters in his hands are not easy to deal with. If we can't find a way to deal with them, when the battle starts and the array is set up, I'm afraid we will suffer heavy losses." General Zhang is right. Immediately, some people voiced their agreement. Compared to the Imperial Court, Marquis Qianshan was not weak. However, it was impossible for him to defend against the army. The only problem was that the other party had 2 array masters in his hands. Such experts. They were more troublesome than the 2 heavenly beings. Even in the Imperial Court, there were only a few array masters in charge. Moreover, each of them held an important position and could not be easily moved. Or else, 2 array Dao Grandmasters would not have caused so much trouble. Another general shouted angrily, "It's a pity that none of those sects are willing to help. If there is a chance in the future, we will wipe out all of these sects." Hearing this, everyone present had different expressions on their faces. Indeed, apart from the Imperial Court, there were very few array masters in the cultivation realm. However, it was not that there were none. Previously, the Imperial Court wanted to transfer some array masters from the sects to help. However, all of them refused. Everyone was well aware of what these sects were planning. However, it was rare for them to say it out so directly. Yin Saija looked normal and said lightly, "Let's put the matter of the sects aside for now. Now, we should focus on quelling the rebellion. As long as Gu Chongqing is eliminated, The rest of the rebels will not be a problem. Speaking of this, he turned the matter to a person who had been sitting on the side and had been silent. I heard that there is a new array master in Bayun Mansion who is quite close to Marquis Bayun. I wonder if this person is willing to help the imperial court deal with Gu Chongqing? Ko Zipping had not participated in the conversation. However, now that Yin Saija had shifted the focus to him, he could not stay silent anymore. Hearing this, he immediately cupped his hands and replied, "My Bayun Marquis residence does have some relations with Qin Shujian, but we can't be considered close. Since General Yin has spoken, I can send a message back to inform the Marquis. However, I cannot guarantee the exact result." Marquis Bayun has been in charge of Bayun Mansion for generations. He is loyal to the imperial court. I don't think this will be too difficult. It will definitely succeed. Yin Saija smiled slightly and said solemnly, "Master Ming is recovering from his injuries. I believe it will not take long for him to fully recover. When the time comes, the two of you will work together to deal with Gu Chongqing." Seeing this, Ko Zipping did not reply. He just cupped his hands slightly and did not do anything else. Yin Saija took a deep look at him and changed the topic. "Speaking of which, if we can make use of the inhuman properly, it will be beneficial for us. However, this is a double-edged sword. If we can make use of them, other forces can make use of their interests to make use of them as well. After this incident, the Inhumans' influence will be even greater." The Inhumans' arrival. So far, it had only been about 2 years. Previously, the various parties had viewed the Inhumans as a new race at most. Although the Inhuman could not die, however, they were still too weak. Moreover, every time they died, they would drop a level. In the eyes of others, it was difficult for them to achieve great things. However, they had overlooked one point. Even if the Inhuman were not strong, there were too many of them and they could not be killed. Most of the Inhuman were the kind that did not fear death. If that was the case, if they could be used properly, they could be compared to the elite soldiers who were not afraid of death. However, the Inhumans' discipline was lax. They were destined to be unable to form an army. However, thinking about it from another perspective, the Inhuman could still be very useful. The incident in Thousand Mountains Mansion was just a small part of it. After understanding the importance of the Inhuman, Yin Saija believed that there would definitely be more forces that would discover the use of the Inhuman. This kind of race, as long as they were given enough benefits, they would be easily made use of. If the imperial court could make use of the Inhuman to deal with the rebels, then the rebels could also make use of the Inhuman to deal with them. Therefore, after hearing Yin Saija's words, many people had grave expressions. Someone even suggested, "Perhaps we can think of a way to restrain the Inhuman and then report to His Majesty to carry out this matter. We can control most of the Inhuman in the hands of our great Zhao. This way, the remaining Inhuman will not be a concern. Moreover, by restraining the Inhuman, we can also indirectly gain a powerful force and strengthen the foundation of our great Zhao." Hearing this, immediately, someone shook his head and said, "How difficult is it to restrain the Inhuman? To restrain a race that could continuously revive. It was too difficult." Chapter 311. On the other side, Marquis Bayun also received Ko Zipping's message. "Yin Saija is really good at this. Does it mean that I, Xiao Chengfeng, am not loyal to the great Zhao because we can't send an array grandmaster?" Marquis Bayun shook his head and laughed as he looked at the information in his hand. Such a method. Actually, it was fine to just take a look. He could also see that the imperial court really did not intend to drag this matter on. Then, Marquis Bayun walked out of the study. There were guards on both sides of the door. When they saw Marquis Bayun, the two guards bowed and saluted. "Greetings, Marquis. Send a message to the other generals to discuss this matter in the main hall." Yes. The two guards took the order and retreated. It didn't take long for everyone who received the news to rush to the Marquis Bayun's mansion. In the main hall, Marquis Bayun, who was dressed in a green and white robe, sat there like an elegant scholar. On his left and right sides were his generals and his right-hand men. After everyone had arrived, Marquis Bayun passed the information in his hand and said, "This is the information from the Thousand Mountains Prefecture. Take a look." While he was talking, the information had already been circulated. There was not much content in the information, only a few hundred words. For them, they could basically finish reading and memorize the content of a few hundred words with just one or two glances. Soon, the information returned to Marquis Baiyun's hands. After a moment of silence, Zhang Hailong said in a deep voice, "According to the information, the imperial court probably wants to take advantage of Gu Chongqing's unstable situation to send troops to eliminate him in one fell swoop. But the problem now is, with our relationship with Yuan Zhong, can we invite this array grandmaster?" When he mentioned Qin Shujian, he used the word invite in response. However, no one revealed any strange expressions. An array grandmaster was worthy of the word invite. After he finished speaking, the middle-aged scholar, Feng Wendy, said, "Gu Chongqing previously sent people to assassinate the array grandmaster, but Yuan Zhong sent people to the Thousand Mountains prefecture, which caused him to be in a terrible situation. Right now, Gu Chongqing's unstable situation is mostly because Yuan Zhong took the lead. Under such circumstances, the two sides were already in a situation where they would not rest until one of them was dead. If there is a chance, Gu Chongqing will definitely destroy the Yuan sect. Similarly, the array formation grandmaster probably doesn't want Gu Chongqing to have a chance to make a comeback." Speaking of which, he glanced at Marquis Baiyun's expression and said with a faint smile, "To be honest, Marquis Baiyun's relationship with Yuan Zhong is quite good. If Marquis Baiyun asks, the possibility of that array Dao grandmaster rejecting him is not high." The Northern Cloud Marquis Manor had cooperated with Sky Origin's sect many times. Naturally, the relationship between the two parties was extraordinary. Even if Marquis Qianshan did not attack Yuan Zhong, if Marquis Baiyun really asked, the possibility of Yuan Zhong rejecting him was not high. It was also for this reason. That was why Marquis Qianshan had thought of striking first to gain the upper hand and eliminating Qin Shujian a step earlier. It was a pity. In the end, he went for wool and came home shorn. Not only did the assassination fail, but he also got himself into trouble. Looking at the discussion of the crowd, Marquis Baiyun did not say anything. After a while, when the main hall gradually quieted down, he said calmly, "Gu Chongqing can send out 2 array formation grandmasters. The force behind him is definitely not to be underestimated. If I'm not wrong, it should be the Demon Clan." The Demon Clan? Hearing this, many people's expressions changed drastically. Obviously, the word Demon Clan had a great impact on them. Other than Feng Wendy, who looked calm, not many others could remain calm. At this moment, Feng Wendy also nodded and said, "We've been sending people to investigate the force behind Gu Chongqing during this period of time, but we lost a lot of people. According to the little information we received, the force behind the other party is most likely the Demon Clan. After all, only the Demon Clan can make Gu Chongqing decide to rebel and not be afraid of the power of the human emperor." The Demon Clan had been one of the top races since ancient times. However, after the defeat of the Demon Emperor, the Demon Clan slowly kept a low profile in the past few thousand years and was only active in the Endless Mountain Range. However, the Demon Clan keeping a low profile did not mean that they were weak. Then, Feng Wendy continued, "To deal with Gu Chongqing, we have to face the Demon Clan force behind him. Yin Saija's actions are equivalent to pushing Baiyun Mansion to the front. You have to be careful, Marquis. A war can't be decided by 1 or 2 people. Since Yin Saija has spoken, I'll do as he wishes." Marquis Baiyun's expression was gentle. Then, he looked at Xiao Hong and said, "Go to Mount Liang tomorrow and invite that array formation grandmaster here." "Yes, Marquis Baiyun. Also, make preparations. Since the imperial court wants to deal with Gu Chongqing, it won't be long before they need military support. It's just a matter of time." "Yes, Marquis Baiyun. Let's disperse." Marquis Baiyun got up and left the main hall. The rest of the people looked at each other and got up to leave. In the backyard of Marquis Baiyun's mansion, Marquis Baiyun sat in a pavilion surrounded by a lotus pond. The lotus flowers bloomed day and night regardless of season. The pond water was clear, and fish could be seen swimming in it. There was only a stone bridge that led to the shore. Inside the pavilion, except for Marquis Bayun. There was one other person sitting there. Marquis Bayun, are we really going to help the imperial court eliminate Gu Chongqing? Feng Wendy no longer had a smile on his face. Instead, he asked solemnly, eliminating the rebels is what we need to do. What's there to think about? Marquis Bayun picked up the teacup in front of him and took a sip. Then, he got up and looked at the lotus flowers in the pond. There was a faint smile on his face. Feng Wendy looked at Marquis Bayun's back and didn't reply. After a long time, as if he had decided on something, he took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, Marquis Bayun, the human emperor is old now. The flames of war have been rising in the Great Zhao these years. Once the human emperor passes away, the world will be in chaos. At that time, all the marquises will rise and fight for the world. What are you trying to say? Marquis Bayun still didn't turn around. He stood by the pavilion with his hands behind his back and looked at the pond. Seeing this, Feng Wendy immediately stood up and walked behind Marquis Bayun. He said respectfully, Marquis, you've ruled Bayun Mansion for hundreds of years and have won the hearts of the people. Once the human emperor passes away, everyone will respond to your call. If we attack Gu Chongqing now, we will inevitably lose our strength. At that time, we won't be able to dominate the world. And, now that Gu Chongqing is attracting the imperial court's attention, we can rest and build up strength. When the human emperor passes away, it will be the best opportunity. After that, Feng Wendy then bowed down. After a long time, Marquis Bayun came back to his senses and looked at Feng Wendy, who was bowing. He said calmly, do you mean that you want me to rebel? I don't dare. Feng Wendy was still bowing. He said sincerely, it's just that the human emperor's death is inevitable. Now that the world is in chaos, it's all thanks to the human emperor's suppression that it hasn't caused a big commotion. However, Gu Chongqing dared to rebel and the human emperor hasn't suppressed him yet. This is a sign that the imperial court is weak. In this case, the imperial court is already an arrow at the end of its flight. When the human emperor passes away, the world will be torn apart. Even if you don't want to rebel, I'm sure you don't want to see the world in chaos. Get up. Thank you, Marquis. Feng Wendy straightened up. At this moment, Marquis Bayun had turned around again. He looked at the pond and smiled meaningfully. Do you really think that the human emperor doesn't have the ability to suppress the world because he's old? You've underestimated him. At this point, he withdrew his gaze from the pond and turned around to look at Feng Wendy. Even with the demon race behind him, Gu Chongqing is still hiding in the Thousand Mountains Prefecture. Do you really think that Yin Saizhe alone can stop the demon race and Gu Chongqing from joining forces? If Gu Chongqing really wants to take over the Thousand Mountains Prefecture, he has a chance. However, he's still hiding in one place. He's just testing the imperial court. For Marquis Qianshan, Marquis Bayun understood. Although the Inhumans had caused chaos in the rear, it was just a small matter. It couldn't shake the foundation at all. In his opinion, with the power of Marquis Qianshan and the demon race, Yin Saizhe and the others were no match for them at all. They hadn't done anything yet. It was because of the human emperor's existence. It was true that the human emperor was nearing the end of his lifespan. However, he hadn't really died yet. As long as he was in power, even if the demon race wanted to go against the imperial court, they had to consider whether they could bear the price. Therefore, until now, the demon race hadn't really shown up. They were only helping in secret. As for Marquis Qianshan, Marquis Bayun guessed that the other party must have prepared a backup plan. The rebellion now. They were just testing the imperial court to see how much power they had. Feng Wendy's heart skipped a beat. It was obvious. Marquis Bayun was much more far-sighted than him on this issue. Marquis Bayun turned a blind eye to this. He smiled faintly and said, Gu Chongqing isn't the only one keeping an eye on the Great Zhao. He's just the first to jump out. Don't underestimate the world. This time, the Bayun Mansion is taking action. Firstly, it's to obey the imperial court. Secondly, it's a good opportunity to see if we can force the demon race behind Gu Chongqing out. Many people wanted to see. What was Marquis Qianshan hiding behind him? Marquis Bayun didn't mind being the first to help under the imperial court's edict. At the same time, He wanted to force Marquis Qianshan and test his limits. I was muddle-headed. No, you're not muddle-headed. I really want to know who sent you here. What do you mean, Marquis? Feng Wendy was confused. Marquis Baiyun's smile faded a little. He looked at the other party's confused expression and said calmly, "It's fine if you don't want to admit it. I don't need too much evidence." Whoosh. With that, Feng Wendy's expression changed abruptly. Like an arrow leaving the bow, he shot towards the void without even thinking about it. Chapter 312. However, as soon as Feng Wendy escaped, his body exploded in the air, turning into a bloody mist that scattered all over the sky. In front of a heavenly being cultivator, with just his divine will, it was enough to kill an ordinary god martial arts realm cultivator. Besides, Feng Wendy was not yet in the god martial arts realm. He was just at the peak of the prominent divine realm. A peak prominent divine realm cultivator had died. The commotion was not small at all. In particular, there were many strong cultivators in the Marquis Mansion, and there was no lack of god martial arts realm cultivators. They naturally noticed the commotion. Almost as soon as Feng Wendy's body exploded, before the blood mist had completely fallen, Ezichan's eyes lit up. More than a dozen figures flew over and landed in front of Marquis Baiyun. "Marquis, what happened?" Li Guang'an looked at the falling bloody mist and asked with a solemn expression. As for the others, they also spread out their divine will and did not notice the existence of other enemies. Marquis Baiyun put his hands behind his back and said lightly, "Feng Wendy is a spy sent by other forces. He is suspected to have sided with the demon clan. Now pass down my order to remove the Feng family." Yes. Hearing this, everyone lowered their heads and replied. No one asked why Feng Wendy sided with the demon clan or if there was any evidence. In the Baiyun mansion, Marquis Baiyun's words were the biggest evidence. Everyone could foresee what would happen to the Feng family next. After the others were ordered to leave, Marquis Baiyun's gaze fell on the pond again. Was Feng Wendy a spy of the demon clan? He knew very well in his heart. But one thing was certain. The other party was not a spy of the demon clan, but he must be someone from other forces who wanted to instigate him to take the lead. For this, Marquis Baiyun would kill him without mercy. As for whether the rest of the Feng family were innocent or not, there were some things that did not need to be investigated so thoroughly. Existence is a sin. This Marquis really wants to know who is behind Feng Wendy. Marquis Baiyun's lips curled up. The other party had been lurking around him for so long, but he did not reveal anything. If it were not for the last moment, the other party could not help but want to encourage him to rebel against the imperial court. Marquis Baiyun still did not know that the person he thought highly of was from another force. On this day, the city was destined to be in turmoil. Since Feng Wendy was on Marquis Baiyun's side, the Feng family had established a foundation in the city. But now, the Feng clan, which usually held power and limitless glory, was filled with blood-curdling screams today. It was completely different from its former grandeur. "My son is Marquis Baiyun's strategist. How dare you kill a member of the Feng family? I'll report this to the Marquis and kill all of you." Feng Hong was furious. Looking at the blood-colored armored soldiers surrounding the Feng family, there was an undetectable shock in his eyes. Chaos Blood Army. They were Marquis Baiyun's elite troops. He didn't know what had happened, but the Chaos Blood Army had surrounded the Feng family. However, Feng Hong knew that he had to borrow Feng Wendy's or Marquis Baiyun's power and influence to suppress the others. Then, he would figure out what was going on. Although, he had a premonition that Feng Wendy might be in trouble. However, the Feng clan's several hundred years of foundation couldn't be destroyed just like that. Li Guang'an sneered. Feng Wendy colluded with the demon race in secret and was killed by the Marquis himself. Now, under the orders of the Marquis, we are here to remove the Feng family's 3 families. Impossible. Feng Hong's expression changed drastically, and he shouted angrily, "How dare you falsify the orders of the Marquis? I want to see the Marquis." It doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. What matters is that the Feng family will no longer exist after today. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Guang'an suddenly attacked Feng Hong. As for the other side, The Chaos Blood Army had already surrounded the Feng family. Boom! As Li Guang'an attacked, Feng Hong immediately burst out with powerful strength and collided with the other party. As the patriarch of the Feng family, Feng Hong was also a great cultivator who had reached the divine martial arts realm. However, it was difficult for a divine martial arts realm cultivator to overturn the heavens. The moment Li Guang'an attacked, 3 more people flew over, and a terrifying aura spread out. They were not weaker than Feng Hong, and they were even stronger. Divine martial arts realm. They were all in the divine martial arts realm. Surrounded by 4 experts of the same level, Feng Hong's face was ashen, but there was still a trace of hope in his heart. He looked up to the sky and roared, "Marquis, are you really going to destroy my Feng family? Feng Windy betrayed me. The Feng family should be killed." Like the mighty power of heaven, the words "should be killed" directly destroyed the last thought in Feng Hong's heart. However, he had no intention of waiting for death. A condensed spiritual deity was born. When a shocking power erupted, Feng Hong wanted to break through the blockade of the 4 people and seize a chance of survival. However, when he released his spiritual deity, 4 condensed spiritual deities also appeared. Under the joint attack, Feng Hong was immediately forced to retreat. Then a long spear pierced through the void. It directly caused Feng Hong's spiritual deity to collapse. Boom! Li Guang'an and the other 3 were much stronger than Feng Hong in a one-on-one battle. Now that the 4 of them joined forces, the other party had no power to fight back. In just a short 15 minutes, Feng Hong let out a scream and completely died. When this great cultivator of the divine martial arts realm died, the rest of the Feng family had already been wiped out by the Chaos Blood Army. The huge Feng family. Corpses were already everywhere. Li Guang'an landed from the sky, and his boots stepped on the blood-stained ground. He ordered, "Pass down my order. Take away everything in the Feng family." There was no reply. The Chaos Blood Army remained silent. In a short period of time, they had looted everything from the Feng family. The Feng family was an aristocratic family with a cultivator of the divine martial arts realm. Although its foundation was not as good as those sects of the big regions, it was definitely not to be underestimated. Especially in the past few years, Feng Windy worked for Marquis Bayun, and the Feng family relied on this relationship. Not many forces dared to offend him. So in the past few years, the resources collected by the Feng family were enough to shock people. However, no matter how many resources they had, no matter how strong they were, in front of the imperial court, they were like clay chickens and pottery dogs. Just an order could make them disappear overnight. Looking at the open space full of gold, silver, and jewelry, as well as all kinds of spiritual flowers, herbs, and rare ores, Li Guang'an waved his hand. "Take them all away." Then, the Chaos Blood Army carried the things away one by one. Not long after, there was no sign of the entire Feng family. After a long time, only then did spies from various forces come in. Looking at the empty Feng clan, everyone had a shocked expression on their faces. I didn't expect that the glorious Feng family would be completely wiped out in less than 4 hours. I'm afraid that Feng Hong never thought that the Feng family would end up like this one day. I didn't expect that Feng Windy would secretly collude with the Demon Clan. It's really unexpected. Haha, some things are just to hear. Standing in the courtyard of the Feng family, some people sighed with emotion from time to time. Witnessing with their own eyes that a big force could be easily wiped out without any resistance, the shock it brought was enough to shock people. At this moment, many people came to their senses. Compared with the imperial court, the so-called aristocratic families and even sects in the cultivation world were actually weak and pitiful. If the imperial court wanted to wipe them out, they only needed to wave their hands to wipe out these forces. This was the terrifying part of the imperial court. Soon, someone had been secretly searching for something in the Feng family. Although the Feng family was gone, when the Feng family was still around, it was an aristocratic family with unimaginable resources in its hands. Even though the Chaos Blood Army had confiscated the entire Feng family, but they believed there would definitely be some remnants. At the same time, the Feng family's properties in various places were an irresistible temptation for other forces. When the news of the Feng family's destruction spread out, almost everyone understood. There would probably be a lot of storms in this cultivation world. After the Feng family's destruction, it caused quite a stir. However, no matter how big the Feng family was, it couldn't affect the entire Baiyun mansion. As a remote place, the Yuan sect was not affected in the slightest. On the top of Mount Liang, the spirit qi of heaven and earth surged. A spirit deity appeared in the void. Qin Shujian was sitting cross-legged under the spirit deity. As he breathed, a huge amount of spirit qi of heaven and earth madly poured into his body. At the same time, the spirit deity appeared in the void. No matter how hot the sun was in the sky, it still couldn't be damaged at all. As the spirit qi of heaven and earth surged in, the 210-meter tall spirit deity seemed to be growing bit by bit. All of a sudden, the spirit qi of heaven and earth swept in like a hurricane. Anyone who had reached a certain level could see the huge spirit deity in the sky. Moreover, they could sense that the spirit deity was gradually increasing. The spirit deity of an ordinary peak vision divine stage is only about 200 meters tall. Could it be that the sect master is preparing to break through to the god martial arts realm? Looking at the spirit deity in the sky, Xiang Haogan's expression changed slightly. The god martial arts realm? Wasn't this a little too fast? However, if he broke through to the god martial arts realm, the stir would definitely be more than this. In this case, he should still be in the spirit martial arts realm. Thinking of this, the shock in Xiang Haogan's heart didn't ease at all. He hasn't broken through to the god martial arts realm, but the spirit deity has broken through the limit of 200 meters. Such a foundation is really amazing. If he breaks through to the god martial arts realm in the future, it will be even more extraordinary. At this moment, this thought came to his mind. It wasn't just Xiang Haogan. When they saw the spirit deity over 200 meters tall, many people were shocked, especially those great cultivators in the god martial arts realm. They understood what it meant for the spirit deity to exceed 200 meters. The changes caused by the breakthrough. Qin Shujian didn't care. At this moment, his mind was completely immersed in cultivation. The cultivation technique of the 8th level of the spirit martial arts section of the origin returning ancestral canon. It involuntarily appeared in his mind. Almost all of the spiritual qi in the world had been pulled over by him. Fortunately, this was the spirit domain, where the spirit qi of heaven and earth was abundant. Otherwise, such a large amount of spirit qi would be enough to cause the spirit qi of a true dominion to fall into a state of depression. Boom! After an unknown period of time, a spirit qi storm swept over. The originally 210-meter tall spirit deity seemed to have undergone some kind of change at this moment. It instantly grew 3 meters taller and reached 220 meters tall. Chapter 313. At the same time, the spiritual deity rose. Qin Shujian did not stop cultivating. Another 2 or 3 hours passed. The Guiyuan ancestral canon that was circulating in his body slowly stopped. The surrounding spiritual qi also gradually dissipated. The spiritual deity returned to his body. Qin Shujian opened his closed eyes. There was a flash of regret in his eyes. I was so close to breaking through to the 20th level. What a pity. Thinking of this, he could not help but shake his head. Sometimes, a little bit was the difference between success and failure. Now, the Guiyuan ancestral canon, Qin Shujian could be considered to have truly cultivated to the peak of the 7th level of the spiritual martial technique. Moreover, he was about to step into the 8th level. However, stepping through the door wasn't really considered a successful breakthrough. But soon, in 10 days to half a month, I should be able to break through to the 8th level of the spiritual martial realm. Sensing his own situation, Qin Shujian could roughly estimate how long it would take for him to break through. For now, he was. 10 days to half a month was nothing. It would happen in the blink of an eye. However, Qin Shujian did not plan to continue cultivating. Instead, he stood up and left the peak of Liang Mountain. Since he did not succeed in his first closed-door cultivation, there was no need to immediately go into closed-door cultivation for a second time. having a balance between tension and relaxation. This was the true way to cultivate for a long time. Or else, if the obsession to break through was too deep, it would be easy to fall into a trance. At that time, it might take twice as long to achieve the desired result. When the strange phenomenon in the sky disappeared, the experts in the Yuan sect also shifted their attention. However, the commotion caused by this breakthrough still shocked many people. If they were not mistaken, that spiritual deity was at least 220 feet tall. A spiritual deity 220 feet tall. And it was a spiritual deity of the spiritual martial realm. That was a bit shocking. As everyone knew, 200 feet was the limit of the spiritual martial realm. Once it exceeded this limit, it was considered to have broken the limit. People who could reach this step, only a few geniuses could do it. When they thought of Qin Shujian's identity as the domain master of the spiritual realm and the rumor of his reincarnation, they felt relieved. When it came to geniuses, no one should be able to compete with this person. Qin Shujian's attempt to break through only caused a small commotion, but it soon quieted down. In the next few days, he still did what he had to do in the sect. But there was something worth mentioning. Many disciples who had gone to Thousand Mountains Prefecture had already returned to the sect to submit their missions and received a large number of contribution points. During the mission submission process, Qin Shujian once again felt the boundless potential of players. A group of people whose strongest strength was no higher than the physical invulnerability stage. He had actually used some unknown method to assassinate a great cultivator of the divine martial realm. Even he was secretly shocked by the fact that the assassin was able to surpass two major realms. Although in the process of the assassination, there was a high probability that it was done with the help of external objects. But even so, it was still amazing. Qin Shujian was very clear. In the sect, the methods that the current players could exchange for were at most used against prominent divine stage cultivators. The most powerful method was the Tao of Array. But without spirit stones and other things that could completely support a Grandmaster level array, the array that could support other things could at most deal with prominent divine stage cultivators. The probability of killing a divine martial realm cultivator was very low. Under such circumstances, the players could still think of ways to kill a divine martial realm cultivator. Qin Shujian couldn't help but admire them. The potential of the players is really endless. If used properly, they are even more useful than the disciples of other sections. But he was also clear. Nurturing players was a double-edged sword. What Qin Shujian wanted to do now was to let the players have the impression that he was an NPC that couldn't be attacked. If that was the case, then most of the players would instinctively ignore the idea of attacking him. So, Qin Shujian had been creating an image of himself being invincible from the beginning to the end. Not long after the last player had submitted the mission, Zhao Shanlin came in front of him and cupped his fists. Sect Master, Steward Xiao of the Baiyun Marquis Mansion is here. Xiao Hong? Qin Shujian was slightly startled and said, "Where is he?" "Waiting at the martial arts hall." "Ask him to come here." "Yes." Looking at Zhao Shanlin's departing figure, his eyes flashed with doubt. Xiao Hong's current identity in front of Yuan Zong was the spokesperson of Marquis Baiyun. Under such circumstances, the other party usually wouldn't easily visit if there wasn't something important. Now that he was here, it already meant that Marquis Baiyun had something to convey to him. When Xiao Hong arrived, Qin Shujian had already brewed the osmanthus spiritual tea and took out 2 empty cups, filling them with tea. "Steward Xiao, please sit." He didn't get up and directly gestured with his hand. To this, Xiao Hong didn't care, but directly sat down and said with a smile, "Every time I come to Yuan Zong, I can taste this osmanthus spiritual tea. It really makes this old man enjoy it." As he spoke, he picked up the teacup in front of him and first took a sip, then sighed and said, "If it's possible, this old man would like to shamelessly ask Sect Master Qin for 1 or 2 tales of osmanthus." "Haha, if Steward Xiao likes it, I'm not a stingy person." Qin Shujian laughed, but he didn't take the other party's words seriously. The osmanthus tree in the courtyard had been nourished by spiritual qi and was comparable to a spiritual plant, but it still couldn't mature for the time being. The osmanthus on the tree was at most on par with 3rd-level spiritual tea. with Xiao Hong's identity. Not to mention third-grade spirit tea. Even if it was higher-grade spirit tea, the other party would definitely not lack spirit tea of a higher grade. His words were more polite and complimentary words. After a smile, Qin Shujian looked at him and asked curiously, "Steward Xiao, is Marquis here for something again?" "Indeed, I can't hide anything from Sect Master Qin. This time, this old man is indeed here on Marquis's orders." Xiao Hong first smiled, then said seriously, "This time, I'm here to ask Sect Master Qin to deal with Gu Chongqing." Gu Chongqing? Marquis Qinshan's real name is Gu Chongqing. Only after Xiao Hong explained did Qin Shujian come to a realization. To tell the truth, until now, he only knew that Marquis Qinshan's real name was Gu Chongqing. Before this, Qin Shujian really hadn't inquired about the other party's name. Xiao Hong said, "Now that Gu Chongqing's base is in chaos due to the mutant assassination, the Imperial Court has decided to take this opportunity to eliminate the rebels in one fell swoop." At this point, he looked at Qin Shujian a few more times. The instigator of the mutant assassination was the sect master of Yuan's sect in front of him. Seeing that there was no change in his expression, Xiao Hong continued, "It's naturally difficult to fight against the Imperial Court with just the strength of the rebels, but Gu Chongqing has 2 array masters. It's also because of this that the Imperial Court's army has suffered heavy losses. Several attacks have been fruitless. No matter how few array masters there are, the Imperial Court should have one. Of course, the Imperial Court has array masters, but the Great Zhao Empire is vast and many places need array masters to guard. There aren't many array masters that can be mobilized." Xiao Hong didn't hesitate to answer Qin Shujian's question. Previously, one of the array masters who accompanied the army was attacked by 2 array masters and suffered serious injuries. Now that he has recuperated, he is almost fully recovered. But even if that array master recovers, there's only one array master. He can't fight against the 2 array masters under Gu Chongqing. That's why I hope Sect Master Qin can help." After that, Xiao Hong shut his mouth for the moment. As for Qin Shujian, he also fell silent. The atmosphere in the courtyard was a little quiet. Qin Shujian understood Xiao Hong's words a little better. However, he did not believe that the Imperial Court's army would stop because of 2 mere array Dao masters. Inside, there must be other reasons. Xiao Hong might know these reasons, but he didn't say them out loud. Of course, he might not know either. No matter which possibility it was, Qin Shujian was sure that things weren't simple. However, he didn't intend to reject Xiao Hong's words. The Yuan sect had a huge business now. In terms of money, Qin Shujian didn't lack much. The thing that he needed the least and needed the most was the source of life. If he wanted to get enough source of life, he needed enough people to harvest it. Speaking of harvesting, there were more people than there were on the battlefield. When the time came, he would throw the array over and the source of life would come rolling in. Qin Shujian vaguely felt that he seemed to have returned to the beginning. When he first came to this world, he ran around for the source of life. Now, he still had to run around for the source of life. The Yuan sect had many disciples, but now, every upgrade was in the tens of millions. If it was just based on the disciples' contributions, it would probably take a few months to deduce one level. If he wanted to completely deduce the upgrade, the time needed might be doubled. Not to mention, the higher the level, the more the source of life would be needed. When that time came, he might not be able to advance one level in a few years or more. However, although he had his own thoughts, he still had to fight for some things. Collecting his thoughts, Qin Shujian opened his mouth to break the silence. "Marquis, you have always helped the Yuan sect a lot. I have always kept that in mind, but I haven't had the chance to repay you. Now that you have asked, I have no reason to refuse." Hearing this, Xiao Hong also showed a smile on his face. However, before the smile could fully appear, it froze for a moment. However, but what? Does Grandmaster Qin have any concerns? Xiao Hong immediately asked. "I don't have any concerns, but I have one thing that I want to understand. Master Qin, please speak clearly. If I help, what benefits will the Imperial Court give me?" Looking at Qin Shujian's serious expression, Xiao Hong was a little speechless. Chapter 314. Benefits. There must be some. After all, it was impossible to ask a formation master to help without risking anything. Although the great Zhao ruled the world, the cultivation world was also under the control of the imperial court. But this was only in name. In fact, the two sides rarely interfered with each other. As long as the forces of the cultivation world did not do anything that had too great an impact, the imperial court would basically not intervene. In the same way, if the imperial court needed the cultivation world to help, they would not directly oppress them with righteousness. They would still give the benefits that should be given. Or else, blind oppression would eventually lead to a strong backlash. Although it was given, it was given. It was the first time that Xiao Hong had met someone who asked so directly like Qin Shujian. The higher the cultivation level of the cultivator, the more they valued their face. After a short silence, Xiao Hong coughed lightly and said with a smile, "Sect Master Qin, you can rest assured that the imperial court will not be stingy with the reward if you can ask a formation master to help. Why don't you tell me the price?" Xiao Hong was speechless again. He was just a messenger, so he didn't know what kind of price the imperial court was willing to pay. However, since Qin Shujian asked, he calmed down and said, "What does Sect Master Qin want?" "Spirit stones, a lot of spirit stones," Qin Shujian said. "Then," he added, "or you can use the jade that comes with spirit stones, but you need more of them. Also, if it's a Dao artifact or an innate spirit item, I'll need some. Spirit stones and jade accompanied by spirit stones." It was specially used to preserve the Grandmaster level formation. After all, once a Grandmaster level formation could be completely engraved, it was equivalent to a David decree. And in terms of killing area, it was more useful than a David decree that only had one person's power. Even if it was a long-term battle, it was not comparable to an ordinary David decree. It should be known that although the Deva decree contained the power of a Deva, it only had the power of one blow. If one blow could not achieve success, then the Deva decree would naturally dissipate. But the Grandmaster level formation was different. Once the formation was set up, unless someone used a powerful force to break the formation or waited for time to retreat, it would always exist. An engraved Grandmaster level formation, if there was no external interference, it could last for at least 3 to 5 days. In this way, the matter of Yuan Zong's lack of combat strength could be considered to have been temporarily resolved. It was a pity. Spirit stones were simply too rare. Even the accompanying jade stones were extremely rare. Even with Yuan Zong's current power and influence, it was impossible for him to gather any information within a short period of time. As for the few spiritual stones in Yuan Zong's hands, they had already fused with the mountain. Vaguely, it was already the foundation for the future. Digging it out was no different from killing the goose that laid the golden eggs. Hearing this, Xiao Hong's expression also turned serious, but he didn't shake his head to refuse. Instead, he said solemnly, "This old man will report Sect Master Qin's request to the Marquis. We will give Sect Master a satisfactory answer when the time comes. Then I'll have to trouble you. This is what this old man should do." Xiao Hong smiled faintly. If someone else had asked for spirit stones or connate spirit items, he would have definitely turned and left. After all, there was such a thing. It was an extremely precious treasure no matter where it was placed. But Qin Shujian was different. There was no difference between a formation grandmaster and a diviner. Especially on the battlefield in the future, a formation grandmaster was even more terrifying than a diviner. To ask such an expert for help, it was only right for him to pay the price. Then, the two chatted for a long time before Xiao Hong got up and said goodbye. Qin Shujian didn't get up to send him off. He just asked an outer sect elder to send him out of Mount Liang. Spirit stones. Connate spirit items. Qin Shujian's fingers touched the rim of the cup. His expression was indescribable. No one knew what he was thinking. According to his estimation, even if the imperial court could give him spirit stones, they wouldn't give him too many. Most of them would be jade stones that accompanied the spirit stones. But this was enough. As for the latter, the possibility of the imperial court directly taking out a Dao artifact was not high. After all, Dao artifacts were extremely precious everywhere, comparable to a great cultivator of the divine martial realm. On the other hand, although innate spiritual items were rare, they were not that precious. After all, under normal circumstances, it was almost impossible for a connate spirit item to transform into a Tao item without at least 1,000 years. As for the connate spirit embryo, perhaps the imperial court might not even have one. For Qin Shu Jian. Right now, the Yuan sect didn't lack cultivation methods and martial arts. With the current storage in the library, it was already enough. As for formations, the several guru-level formations he had obtained before were enough for him to deduce other formations based on the original foundation. Therefore, even if it was a guru-level formation, it would not be of much use to him. In comparison, on the other hand, spirit stones, jade stones, Tao items, and connate spirit items were more useful to Qin Shujian. The former could allow the other people in the Yuan sect to have strength that surpassed their own for a short period of time. It could be considered as making up for the gap in his realm. The latter, it could increase his own strength. Qin Shujian's spiritual divinity had broken through its original limits after being burned by the Bright King's karmic fire and devouring the fire lotuses one after another. Even if his true realm was only at the peak of the 7th level of the spirit martial realm. But he was confident. Without relying on Tao items or formations, he could suppress a peak prominent divine martial realm cultivator. Then, Qin Shujian stood up. He stepped into the air and stood on Mount Liang. Looking at the majestic mountain in front of him, he couldn't help but associate it with the original small mountain. Now, here. It was the foundation of the Yuan sect. Previously, Qin Shujian had planned to set up a sect protecting formation and a spirit gathering formation around the sect. However, due to certain reasons, he hadn't really implemented it. Now, he was free. He also planned to complete his previous plan. Mount Liang was very tall. It was 9,000 feet tall. In the entire Mount Liang spirit region, there was no taller mountain than this. Boom! Qin Shujian moved his finger. When a rune was drawn, the void immediately rumbled. Like a tidal wave, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth swept over. A huge commotion. It immediately attracted the attention of others. This is setting up a formation. When the people from the array hall saw the figure standing in the void and the mysterious rune drawn by his finger, they were first stunned. Then, they were pleasantly surprised. A master-level formation. They actually had the chance to see a master-level formation with their own eyes. A master-level formation. Setting up a formation with a wave of his hand. When a formation was set up, unless one was in existence of the same level, one wouldn't even have the qualifications to observe it. Just like what Qin Shujian was doing now. The drawing of the runes one by one gave them the opportunity to observe the runes. Even Xiang Haogan. At this moment, they were also silent. They stared blankly at the runes drawn in the void. They didn't relax for a moment. As for Zhuijin, it was the same at this moment. In the void, Qin Shujian's finger drew the power of heaven and earth. Every time it drew across the void, there seemed to be Tao rhymes circulating. Every stroke of the runes was naturally formed. Endless mysteries were contained within. When the first rune was successfully drawn, below, some people's faces turned pale. They directly closed their eyes and didn't dare to watch anymore. These people, they were the apprentices who had just started learning about formations. They knew some knowledge about formations, but they couldn't even be considered as a true beginner. With their foundation in formations, when they saw the first rune, they couldn't take it anymore. Sensing the commotion around him, Xiang Haogan immediately shouted, "Those who can't take it, don't force yourself to look. Otherwise, it will damage your divine consciousness." As for those who didn't know about formations, they didn't react at all. This was the difference between those who knew and those who didn't. In the eyes of those who didn't know about formations, runes were runes. There was no difference, and they couldn't see through the mystery. But for those who knew about formations, runes were runes. But it was also a manifestation of Tao. Such an impact. It was a test of the formation master's cultivation and understanding of formations. When the second rune appeared, there were already low-grade formation masters who couldn't take it anymore. They also closed their eyes and stopped watching. But there were still people who forced themselves to hold on. However, when the third rune was drawn halfway. Puff! The formation master who forced himself to hold on had already spat out blood and didn't dare to watch anymore. The third rune, the fourth rune, the fifth rune. Zwajin's face was a little pale. In his eyes, the runes engraved in the void had already turned into thunderbolts of heaven and earth. They had already appeared in his mind and kept striking his divine consciousness, causing it to shake. Fortunately, although he was a middle-grade formation master, his understanding of formations wasn't bad at all. When the other middle-grade formation masters saw the fifth rune, they couldn't hold on anymore. Only Zwajin. He was still holding on. He knew in his heart that such an opportunity to watch a formation master set up a formation was very rare. If he missed it just like that, he would really regret it for the rest of his life. Apart from Zwajin, the only one who was still observing the rune outline was the upper-grade array master in the array formation hall. The void trembled. The spiritual energy turned into a tide. The terrifying heavenly power emitted from the runes made everyone's heart sink. When the 11th rune was successfully drawn, Zwajin finally couldn't take it anymore. He closed his eyes unwillingly and then sat cross-legged on the ground. He kept digesting the first 11 runes that he had memorized in his mind in an attempt to preserve the Tao rhythm. When the 12th rune appeared, there were already high-grade formation masters who couldn't take it anymore. When the 23rd rune appeared, even Xiang Haogan, who had the most profound cultivation in formations, had to close his eyes and give up the idea of continuing to observe. Qin Shujian didn't stop at all. One rune after another was drawn from his hands and then engraved in the void. In less than half an hour, a huge formation that encompassed the entire Yuan sect was formed. The moment the formation was formed, everyone felt a large amount of spiritual energy of heaven and earth surging towards them. Under the impact of the rich spiritual energy, some people already felt that the bottleneck of their cultivation level was loosened. If the original spiritual energy of heaven and earth in Yuan sect was 1, then it was at least 3 now. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.